Chapter 2069. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on Qin Zhao's door. Zhang Tianyi stood outside and looked at Qin Zhao, who'd opened the door. He looked Qin Zhao up and down. Did you forget something? No, I remember we're doing it tonight, right? Then go change. Zhang Tianyi's face darkened as he looked at Qin Zhao, who was wearing boxers. This pair of boxers was kissed by the goddess of victory, Qin Zhao said seriously. I've never lost in this pair of boxers. Zhang Tianyi gritted his teeth and stared at Qin Zhao. What does winning a battle have to do with these pants? Be serious and go change your clothes. No, I must wear this pair of boxers to the battle today. Aren't you afraid of running naked? These pants are made of dragon scales, Qin Zhao said matter-of-factly. Zhang Tianyi took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. Whatever. As long as you're happy, but you should at least wear a t-shirt. You're really not suited for that wild style. Qin Zhao didn't even want to wear a t-shirt. After all, normal clothes were almost useless in every battle. In Qin Zhao's luggage, even normal t-shirts cost $100 or $200. They were all high-end goods. Plus, it wasn't like he was going to a conference. There was no need to wear a suit. Zhang Tianyi could feel Qin Zhao's perfunctory attitude. Forget it, he was the one asking for help. He could only accept this perfunctory response. When it was time for the mission, Qin Zhao wouldn't be perfunctory. The location wasn't very far from here. It was only 100 kilometers from Rome. This time, Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi didn't take a car. They flew in the night sky. Zhang Tianyi observed Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao, do you want to compete in speed? Sure, let's bet something. Sure, Zhang Tianyi agreed without hesitation. If I lose, I'll help you for free, Qin Zhao said. Zhang Tianyi's face darkened again. Didn't that mean he didn't pay anything? If you lose, you'll strip naked and run around Rome. Whoosh! Suddenly, Zhang Tianyi disappeared before Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao froze and realized that Zhang Tianyi was already several kilometers away. Qin Zhao gasped. So fast! How did Zhang Tianyi do it? There was no airflow caused by the high-speed movement. No, this wasn't just speed. This was a spell. However, Qin Zhao didn't plan to admit defeat. Bang! A violent explosion came from high up in the sky. While Zhang Tianyi was resting, Qin Zhao had already rushed up to him. What followed closely was a terrifying airflow. The skin on Zhang Tianyi's face was almost deformed by the strong airflow. Qin Zhao's t-shirt was completely destroyed. Zhang Tianyi looked at him. You seem to be faster than I thought. You're not slow either. Qin Zhao looked at Zhang Tianyi. What spell was that? Ground shrink, Zhang Tianyi said. Luckily, your spell needs to recover, Qin Zhao said. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have won. Zhang Tianyi's eyes flashed. She returned. Looks like I have to get serious. Then I'll get serious too. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom boom, Zhang Tianyi's ground shrinking didn't stop at all. Qin Zhao had to take back his words and speed up at full speed. In less than 10 seconds, the two appeared in a small town at the edge of a forest. They reached the entrance of the town in an instant. The difference was that Zhang Tianyi had arrived without a sound. On the other hand, Qin Zhao's method was much more violent. The moment Qin Zhao landed, a crater several meters wide appeared in the ground. This distance is too short. We'll decide the winner in a split second. Qin Zhao had used all his trump cards except for giant spirit form. Next time, we'll go around the world. Do you dare to compete? Zhang Tianyi was also very stubborn. Why not? You're so old. Don't die halfway. Damn you, I can even go to the sun for a spin. If you can really go around the sun, I'll admit defeat. After the bragging session ended, Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi walked into the town. Neither of them sensed any signs of life. Suddenly, a figure popped out from the corner of the street and charged at Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi. Without thinking, Chen Zhao punched the figure. The figure dissipated instantly. Then an old man in a red robe ran out. Covering his face, he pointed at Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi, who's this guy? He's too heavy-handed. Chen Zhao looked at the old man. He wore a golden crown and held a scepter. His entire body emanated a holy aura. This guy isn't the Pope. This guy isn't the Pope, who told you to scare people by pretending to be a ghost. Zhang Tianyi mocked. The old man looked at Chen Zhao and sized him up. This is the helper you hired? When did Huaxia have such a young and powerful expert? Everyone in this town is dead? Of course they're retreating. How can I let this happen? Just then, 2 cars drove over with their headlights on. 3 people got out of the car in front. 2 of them were the 23rd generation Mary and Kamor Deacon. Chen Zhao didn't know the other one. His eyes were cold. He had an extremely young and handsome face. However, his hair was silver white. A few people got out of the car behind. There were young people and middle-aged people. Celestial Master Zhang, you're early. Kamor Deacon walked up to Zhang Tianyi politely. I'm not like you guys who procrastinate, Zhang Tianyi said coolly. Okay, everyone's here. I'll start assigning tasks. Zhang Tianyi was the main person in charge of this incident and also the overall commander. Thus, even the old man with the golden crown had to listen to Zhang Tianyi. Kamor Deacon, you're in charge of the first passage. Bifla, you're in charge of the second passage. Blood Mary, you're in charge of the third passage. John, you're in charge of the fourth passage. I'll be in charge of the innermost passage, Zhang Tianyi said. The passage between the netherwater and the human world was divided into 5 levels. The lower one went, the more dangerous it would be. Zhang Tianyi took the seal in the deepest part. It was mainly because Chen Zhao had come with him, so he felt like he was the safest. Of course, based on the danger level of the lower 3 levels, it was reasonable for Zhang Tianyi to assign Mary, the old man with the golden crown, or the cold-haired handsome guy. After I finish the seal, the one above will activate the seal. Where's the friend you brought? What's he doing? Protecting me, Zhang Tianyi said matter-of-factly. Zhang looked at Chen Zhao. He wasn't surprised that Zhang Tianyi brought a bodyguard. Rather, he was surprised that Zhang Tianyi didn't choose his disciple, but Chen Zhao, who didn't seem to have much strength. Chapter 2070. Except for 23rd Blood Mary. Everyone else couldn't help but observe Chen Zhao carefully. Kamor Deacon squinted. An obscure glint flashed across his eyes. But no one said anything. When they reached the edge of the forest, they could hear intense gunshots and cannons ahead. Is it the Sacred Army? Kamor Deacon asked. They seem to have suffered heavy casualties. Kamor Deacon sounded like he was gloating. Old John's expression was extremely ugly. He was truly the Virgin Mary in the spiritual world. John suddenly flew into the sky. Holy light shone from his body, almost covering the entire battlefield. My children, retreat. Leave the rest of the battle to me. John's holy light healed every injured Sacred Army member. At the same time, it caused great damage to the impure souls that ran out of the tunnel. This old thing. Doesn't he know how to save his mana? 23rd Blood Mary complained. He's using so much mana now. Can he endure the seal later? Each of the 5 seals required an enormous amount of mana to maintain. Zhang Tianyi and 23rd Blood Mary were fine. After all, they were Shangqing realm experts. Their mana was almost limitless. The small world could increase their mana recovery speed to an unimaginable level. This was something spiritualists below Shangqing realm couldn't achieve. Unless the mana consumption exceeded the recovery speed, Shangqing realm was basically a perpetual motion machine. John was powerful, but he was still one step away from Shangqing realm. He was using too much mana here. This meant that there would be greater danger and trouble during the sealing process. Moreover, Old Man John was in charge of the 4th layer, which was second only to the 5th layer in difficulty. As the commander, Zhang Tianyi arranged for John to be in charge of the 4th seal. Even 23rd Blood Mary was in charge of the 3rd seal. Of course, it was because of John's power. Of course, it was also because he was the big boss of the church. John hadn't reached Shangqing realm, but he controlled the ultimate power of holy light. He had absolute control over spiritual bodies. After a while, old John descended from the sky. He looked rather tired. John, you bastard. Don't tell me that you don't care about our plan? 23rd Gen cursed. But I can't watch my children face the threat of death without doing anything. You can't save everyone. At least I won't allow my children to die in front of me, old John said solemnly. Fine, I don't care about you anymore. If you fail, more people will die, Blood Mary warned. I won't fail. I know what I'm doing, old John said. The deeper they went, the more corpses they saw. All of them were the corpses of the Sacred Army. Old John's face was full of sorrow. My children, please rest in peace. Heaven has opened its doors to you, and I will look up at you from earth as you return to the embrace of the Lord. If you delay any longer, more people will return to the embrace of the Lord. The 23rd generation Blood Mary was an impatient person. Old John was still praying and purifying the fallen Sacred Army soldiers. Fine, let's go, old John said sadly. But before long, he saw many impure souls crawling out of the tunnel. They were capturing the souls of the fallen Sacred Army soldiers. Damn it! Give me back my child's soul! Old John was enraged once again. Old John didn't care about other people's gazes at all. He just killed his way to the tunnel. By now, the tunnel had expanded to a diameter of 100 meters. Moreover, the periphery was still collapsing. The tunnel was bottomless. Actually, it wasn't bottomless. At least, Qin Zhao's little world could reach the bottom. It was about 600 to 700 meters. But the bottom of the tunnel wasn't really eerie water. Moreover, at the entrance of the passageway, unclean souls were constantly coming out. Of course, no one would be suicidal and offend these monster-level humans standing at the edge. The people gathered here were probably the strongest group of humans in the current era. Qin Zhao, let's go down first. Qin Zhao nodded and jumped down with Zhang Tianyi. Can that kid really do it? Khmor Deacon asked with strong doubt. Old Zhang Tianyi is probably training him, the 23rd generation Blood Mary said. Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi were both free-falling. Not long after, the two of them reached the bottom. No, they entered the eerie water world. It was a huge alternate dimension. It could also be called a little world. When Qinzhao and Zhang Tianyi landed, they saw that there were sacred army soldiers here. The leader was a fat old man. Roselick was here too. They were fighting against the impure souls here. Hey! Little fatty, Zhang Tianyi greeted. Wow! Celestial Master Zhang, you're here. Great, you're finally here. I don't have to die. Tears and snot flowed down the old bishop's face. I still want to become the Pope one day. I don't want to die here. Zhang Tianyi knew the old bishop's personality. Why are you here? That bastard old man, no, His Holiness the Pope felt that his position was threatened by me, so he used his position to avenge a personal grudge. He actually gave me this mission of certain death. He told me to come here and directly stop the impure souls from charging out of the passage. You've finally arrived. Aren't you an archbishop? Even John can't force you to die. He said that if I don't die, I'll be crowned as the official successor, and I'll be in the top 5. Zhang Tianyi looked at the fat old bishop, even though he had been complaining in front of him. Although the old bishop had been complaining before him, he didn't seem injured at all. Moreover, even the mana was very abundant. Hurry up and save me. I'm not free. Zhang Tianyi glanced at the old bishop. You guys continue fighting. I'm going to activate the seal here. Before I do, don't think about going anywhere. You want me to die? I'm not doing this. I'm leaving now. Let's go. If you can go, then go. Ignoring the bishop's complaints, Zhang Tianyi started releasing his magic power. The fat old bishop complained incessantly. Suddenly, a beam of white light shot out of the bishop's palm. A powerful and pure soul was destroyed instantly. Qinzhao glanced at the fat old bishop. This move wasn't the holy light cannon, but the effect was exactly the same as Qinzhao's. Chapter 2071. Zhang Tianyi turned to look at Qinzhao. You're not going to help? Do you have time to talk to me? Qinzhao kept looking at Zhang Tianyi. Qinzhao was waiting to see what Zhang Tianyi would do. Surging magical power surged out of Zhang Tianyi's body. Like tentacles, it started exploring the surroundings. I'm still looking. The seal can't be seen with the naked eye. I can only search with magic power. It's like looking for a chamber pot at night and aiming at the mouth. Dragon Tiger Mountain doesn't have a toilet? The toilet was only installed after 2000, so there's only one chamber pot. Fuck, can we not talk about this in such a tense atmosphere? Go help me. They don't seem to need my help. Qinzhao looked around. The sacred army didn't receive Zhang Tianyi's orders. However, they tacitly formed a line of defense around Zhang Tianyi and surrounded him. Looks like their defense line is very solid, Qinzhao said in a relaxed tone. I can't do anything. They look relaxed now, but they'll be in big trouble soon. Really? Qinzhao looked outside the defense line at the flying unclean souls. He didn't discover any powerful spirits. At this moment, he felt that the tentacles that Zhang Tianyi's magic power had turned into suddenly grabbed something. You found the seal? Yes. Zhang Tianyi nodded. Immediately, his magical power was released 10 times more than before. Zhang Tianyi's expression was still very relaxed. It seemed like 10 times more explosive power wasn't his limit. It made sense. He was the publicly acknowledged number one in the supernatural world. If it was only to this extent, there probably wouldn't be many people who would admit it. At the same time, the unclean souls attacking from the outside started becoming stronger. Large numbers of terrifyingly strong unclean souls appeared. Apart from the fat old bishop, the other sacred army was starting to run out of strength. Most of the sacred army were actually ordinary people. They were very similar to Klaus. They also had superhuman bodies. But they didn't exceed their limits by much. Coupled with hard training, they were proficient in fighting and firearms. Then, with the weapons given by the church and a certain amount, they could form a decent fighting force. Of course, there was still a huge gap between them and Klaus. After all, the resources that Klaus and the Lightning Squad had obtained were incomparable to the Sacred Army. After all, there were only so many people in the supernatural organization. Naturally, the resources that landed in their hands were more than others. Furthermore, some resources that were useless to others were extremely valuable to Klaus and the Lightning Squad. For example, Klaus and the Lightning Squad could soak all of their weapons in dragon blood. But the Sacred Army was obviously not that extravagant. There were too many people in the Sacred Army, so the resources allocated to them were few and far between. Most of the resources could only be obtained through battle achievements. Most importantly, the truly valuable resources had always been inclined towards spiritualists. The spiritualists in the Paladin army were all captains, so they controlled most of the resources. The normal Holy Army was used as cannon fodder. Although it was cruel to say this, it was the truth. The impure souls began to attack. As a result, there were a lot of casualties. What's with these impure souls? I feel like they're different from evil spirits, Qin Zhao asked. Of course they're different. Normal evil spirits have lingering thoughts when they were alive. In the end, their negative emotions won over their rationality, but their rationality didn't disappear. But these impure souls aren't like that. They're just normal spirits that were instilled with large amounts of evil thoughts. This is commonly known as blackening. Who instilled it into them? It can't have appeared out of thin air, right? I don't know who did it, but when the eerie water appeared, the impure souls appeared too. It can be traced back to more than 1,000 years ago. That was also the European Dark Age, Zhang Tianyi said. It was the darkest age in Europe, but a large number of powerful spiritualists also appeared. The Holy Army was also formed at that time to deal with the impure souls in the eerie water. The seal here was also completed at that time, but it didn't last long before the impure souls destroyed it. Then, the Holy Army sealed it again. Over and over again, the Holy Army suppressed the impure souls in the eerie water through life and death battles every time. But I feel like this place isn't at the level of a major event. Or is there something else that I don't know about? The thing here has killed 2 popes, Zhang Tianyi said solemnly. Is there something stronger than these here? Qin Zhao looked around. Definitely, and there's more than one, Zhang Tianyi said. Zhang Tianyi said, and every time an impure soul breaks through the seal, the harm it brings is greater and greater, and the level of harm is also higher and higher. You sure know a lot about it. Of course. This isn't a secret in the spiritual world. Everyone knows it long ago. Just then, the fat old bishop ran toward Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi with his short legs, his big belly shaking. No, we really can't, Celestial Master Zhang, the old bishop said, panting. We really can't take it anymore. Stop pretending, Zhang Tianyi scolded. I know you're much stronger than what you've shown. Fight seriously. But at that moment, an extremely dark shadow appeared in front of them. The aura it emitted was very uncomfortable. There were also a large number of powerful and pure souls lingering around the shadow. The shadow was on the same level as the cursed spirit Chen Zhao had captured in Africa. Chen Zhao also discovered that a few more high-level impure souls had appeared in the nearby area. Celestial Master Zhang, do you want me to deal with that thing? I don't want to die. That thing is too scary. Just then, a skeleton crawled out of the shadow. It was a skeleton with tattered clothes and a magic staff in his hand. That's a dead soul, Zhang Tianyi said. Little fatty, tell everyone to back off and stand behind me. The old bishop really didn't want to be called little fatty. But he couldn't offend Zhang Tianyi, so he could only pretend that nothing had happened. Zhang Tianyi looked at Chen Zhao. Stop pretending. Do it. Chapter 2072. Celestial Master Zhang, you can call me that in private. I'm a bishop now, a bishop. The old bishop really couldn't accept being called a little fatty in front of so many subordinates. Even if you really become the pope in the future, you're still a little fatty in my eyes. Zhang Tianyi didn't give him any face at all. The old bishop grimaced, his expression rather uncomfortable. What else could he do? He could only accept it. Could he beat Zhang Tianyi? Most importantly, he couldn't. The old bishop glanced at Chen Zhao. Celestial Master Zhang, can you handle this kid? What do you think I brought him here for? A mascot? Rosalic also brought his men back to defend the area. Bishop, what do we do now? Don't worry, Celestial Master Zhang is here, the old bishop said. Chen Zhao looked at the approaching dead soul. It looked rather awkward no matter how he looked at it. That's a sleeping dead soul? What's special about it? Chen Zhao asked. No special features, Zhang Tianyi said. It can take physical damage. It's your best enemy. The old bishop and the surrounding sacred soldiers all looked at Chen Zhao. That was a dead soul. In their eyes, it was an unclean spiritual body filled with terrifying and strange power. But in their mouths, it seemed to be a small problem that could be dealt with at any time. Seeing the large number of sacred soldiers gathered around Zhang Tianyi, the dead soul immediately charged over. Its huge body shrouded over like a canopy of the sky. Oh no! Everyone, raise your defenses to the maximum. Hurry, hurry! Seeing that the dead soul had already charged over before Chen Zhao could do anything, the old bishop screamed in fear. Whoosh! Suddenly, a strong and hot air current whizzed through the middle of everyone. The next moment, Chen Zhao appeared before the dead soul. One punch. Boom! An opening appeared in the middle of the dead soul. Then the power spread out from the opening. In an instant, the spirit body of the dead soul body cracked. Chen Zhao landed back on the ground and stretched his limbs. Everyone stared at Chen Zhao in shock. One punch. It ended just like that. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was a great visual impact. Is this the end? That's too boring, old Zhang. Enemies of this level, even if you're squatting in a pit and wiping your ass, you can still get rid of them. Chen Zhao clapped his hands. The fat old bishop and the holy army were furious. They all felt that Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi had gone too far. Zhang Tianyi glanced at Chen Zhao. The trouble is yet to come. Dead souls are actually moving sources of evil. Each individual is very powerful, but they're food for other unclean souls. Especially after this food is killed, it's like scavengers smelling rotten corpses. Gradually, everyone could see dark specks of light appearing in the distance. Here it comes. Here it comes, those things are coming. It was a truly sinister and terrifying materialization. It was as if all the evil in the world had gathered here. Even if those things hadn't reached him yet. However, that overwhelming pressure still caused everyone to be unable to breathe. It wasn't an army, it was a tsunami. That's more in line with your current strength, Zhang Tianyi said leisurely at the side. After all, he didn't have to do anything. He just had to watch from the side. Zhang Tianyi suddenly felt so happy. Sometimes, happiness came so suddenly, and so strangely. That's so troublesome. Chen Zhao sighed. I suddenly regret helping you. The fat old bishop couldn't keep joking so casually anymore. There's only a hint of something big now, Zhang Tianyi said. Zhang Tianyi said, you know what will happen if these things get out. Chen Zhao turned his head and looked at Zhang Tianyi. Can you cast a spell on them? No problem, Zhang Tianyi agreed readily. Chen Zhao's 16 clones appeared at the same time. Then there were 16,000 stone swords. Chen Zhao had forged these stone swords himself in the river diagram. Without Old Turtle's help, Chen Zhao could only do it himself. When the sky was filled with stone swords dancing in the air. Even Zhang Tianyi was dumbfounded. Chen Zhao, your move is 10,000 returning swords, right? I created it myself. I did think of the name back then, but I just felt ashamed. As for the sacred army, their eyeballs were about to fall to the ground. What was that? Was it a miracle? Compared to Chen Zhao's first move, he'd only thrown a punch. The result was shocking, but it wasn't enough. But now, the stone swords that filled the sky were no longer the same as they were in the past. There was also the shocking killing efficiency. All the sacred army combined probably wouldn't be as efficient as Chen Zhao alone. More importantly, Chen Zhao was completely at the back. Not a single impure soul could get within 1,000 meters of him. This is Qingyi sect's needle threading, right? Just like how Chen Zhao was observing Zhang Tianyi was also observing Chen Zhao. Zhang Tianyi quickly figured out the use of Chen Zhao's move. When they'd conversed before, Chen Zhao had taught Zhang Tianyi his clones. So, Zhang Tianyi quickly figured out the trick. But even so, there probably wasn't anyone else who could use it like Chen Zhao did. After all, Chen Zhao had cultivated like this every day in the river diagram. Who knew how long he'd spent? It wasn't just a matter of how much magic power he had. He'd built it up over time. Even Zhang Tianyi would sigh when faced with such a move. But there were simply too many impure souls. There were so many of them that even 10,000 stone swords couldn't completely stop these impure souls. Furthermore, some of the impure souls were much stronger than ordinary impure souls. Chen Zhao, this move doesn't seem to work. Even your 10,000 returning swords can't stop it. My move isn't called 10,000 returning swords. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes and put away all the stone swords. The fat bishop and the sacred army saw Chen Zhao actually put away the stone swords. They all thought that Chen Zhao had used up his magic power. But it was understandable. After all, Chen Zhao had just used that grand spell to kill hundreds of thousands of impure souls. This was already a huge meritorious achievement. But compared to the total number of impure souls, Chen Zhao's achievements were insignificant. At the same time, all of Chen Zhao's clones merged into one. Chen Zhao twisted his neck and looked at the raging waves that were charging over. Suddenly, Chen Zhao waved his palms and slapped at the sky. Then, huge palms kept falling from the sky. Boom, 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 it was like a bomber. Chapter 2073. It was like the ground had been run over by an iron bull. It was completely flipped over, and not just once. Instead, it was constantly being overturned, tossed over and over, over and over again. Now, the attack's range, and power had all surpassed Imperial Thousand Swords. This was an inevitable result. As Chen Zhao's power increased, some abilities in the past had started losing their use or value. Gradually, they were replaced by more efficient attacks. Everyone stared at Chen Zhao, dumbfounded. Even Zhang Tianyi was startled. Rosalic stared at Chen Zhao, dumbfounded. Was this Chen Zhao's true power? It was unimaginably strong. An unparalleled attack. It was like a god in the sky, continuously slapping down palms. The unclean souls that had been like a tsunami a moment ago were now almost empty. Now, they were almost empty. Whoosh, Chen Zhao let out a long breath. How is it? It's not bad, right? Chen Zhao looked back at Zhang Tianyi. Not bad, Zhang Tianyi said honestly, but it's not strong enough for single-target attacks. Of course, how could he not know that this move was originally meant to be used as a group attack? He also knew Chen Zhao's single-target attacks. To be honest, Zhang Tianyi was really jealous of Chen Zhao's move. With Chen Zhao alone, the enemy's advantage in numbers couldn't be realized. Numbers? They didn't exist before Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao glanced at Zhang Tianyi. You're just trying to argue. Why don't you show me a move that can deal massive damage to a single target? If you can do it, I'll be a doorman for Dragon Tiger Mountain for a year. Fuck off. You don't look like a good person. If you work as a doorman, we'll lose half of our ticket revenue. Just then, Chen Zhao felt a ripple in the distance. The ripple went from weak to strong. It wasn't the kind that went from far to near. The source of the ripple wasn't far away. However, the difference in strength was obvious. But soon, Chen Zhao realized something. It wasn't through perception. He could see it with his naked eye. The fragments of the unclean souls that Chen Zhao had destroyed were gathering. Chen Zhao rubbed his chin and looked at the huge spiritual body that was gathering. The fragments of the impure souls did not combine to form a distorted spiritual body, but a complete soul. This surprised Chen Zhao. This was because souls could not be randomly combined. Combining them would only result in something distorted. However, the combined spirit body did not look like a distorted spirit body. Those impure souls seemed to be a part of this spiritual body. Old Zhang, do you know what's going on? I think I've figured it out. Zhang Tianyi also looked at the spirit body that was gradually becoming stronger. What happened? Isn't it obvious? For some reason, the soul that was reassembling was split into countless parts, which resulted in countless impure souls. Now that these individual impure souls have been completely destroyed by you, these fragments are beginning to reassemble and are becoming complete. Everyone's hair stood on end when they heard this. Millions of impure souls were actually fragments of a single main body? In that case, just how powerful was this main spiritual body? It was unimaginable how terrifying the spiritual body would be when it gathered together. Celestial Master Zhang, Mr. Chen, shouldn't we stop him before he fully recovers? The fat old bishop asked urgently. I don't have time to deal with him now, Zhang Tianyi said casually. Ask Qin Zhao. I want to see what exactly he is, Qin Zhao said. Now is not the time to be willful, the fat bishop advised. Qin Zhao, that guy really doesn't look good. Pa, Qin Zhao snapped his fingers. Who has a cigarette? Give me one. One of the sacred soldiers hurriedly handed Qin Zhao a cigarette. Qin Zhao puffed out smoke in front of everyone. I'm facing a huge challenge, but I'm still here so casually. Don't I look handsome? Zhang Tianyi mouthed silently to Qin Zhao, handsome B, do you think I won't kill you? Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi started fighting again. Everyone was speechless at these two people, who were so powerful that it made people's hair stand on end, but their tempers were so bad. Their internal conflict didn't care about the occasion. Everyone couldn't help but wonder if powerful people were all this bad-tempered. The spiritual body gradually took shape and became flawless. It also had a terrifying aura. Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi stopped fighting too. He looks like he's a bit troublesome. Qin Zhao, don't fail miserably. Troublesome? I'm not just a bit troublesome. The spiritual body opened his eyes and looked at everyone. I'm the perfect creation of the Demon King. I'm above everything. A terrifying pressure suddenly exploded from the spirit body, and in an instant, hundreds of holy army soldiers all fell to the ground. Even the chubby old bishop was no exception. This extremely terrifying pressure was almost tangible. Only Zhang Tianyi and Qin Zhao weren't affected. 10,000 curses are flying through my mind, Zhang Tianyi said. Do you have to be so awesome? Weird. As the big boss, shouldn't you introduce yourself first? Qin Zhao tilted his head and looked at the spiritual body. There's no need to be so troublesome with bugs. You'll all be gone soon. Plus, you don't even have the right to know my name. You say you're the perfect creation of the Demon King? You're perfect. How dare you? An even more terrifying pressure pressed toward Qin Zhao. You dare to doubt me? Your anger fully shows your lack of confidence. You know very well that you're not perfect. At least, you're not so powerful that you're perfect. Your words will only make you die faster. The spiritual body looked at Qin Zhao coldly. Oh, let me see how you kill me. Qin Zhao curled his finger. 10 million murderous intents. The spiritual body suddenly glared at Qin Zhao. But Qin Zhao looked at the spiritual body calmly. As long as the soul's strength reaches a certain level, it's almost impossible to suppress an opponent with mental power. Qin Zhao shrugged. You better show me what you've got after combining millions of impure souls. That's what you should be doing right now. If you want to defeat me with mental power alone, it's too unrealistic. You damned ant. Suddenly, Qin Zhao appeared before the spiritual body without any warning. The spiritual body didn't even have time to react before Qin Zhao grabbed its neck. Qin Zhao's body released a powerful holy aura. If you're only good at talking, you'd better die. Chapter 2074. I'm a carrier with 10 million consciousnesses. Can you fight against 10 million consciousnesses? The spirit still looked at Qin Zhao confidently. He seemed to care a lot about his background. As far as he was concerned, he was the supreme being. Suddenly, Qin Zhao lifted his arm and a wave of holy energy shot out. The spirit's chest was pierced. Then, the spirit's aura weakened a lot. Carrier of 10 million consciousnesses? You're just gathering these consciousnesses together to make it easier for me to kill you, or rather, all of you. The spirit claimed to be a perfect creation created by the Demon King. But to Chen Zhao, it was far from perfect. It was like a huge army that could be split into many individuals. It could also be combined into a complete whole. Of course, the individual wasn't as strong as a whole. However, there was also a fatal flaw when it was integrated into a whole. It was like 10 million people being tied together. When Chen Zhao's punch landed on the spirit, all of its bodies would be injured. Although this spiritual body was strong, it was far from perfect. If this was the level of the handsome guy's so-called perfect creation, Chen Zhao had to look down on him. After being punched, the spirit immediately retreated 100 meters, distancing itself from Chen Zhao. He looked at his pierced chest in shock. When he looked at Chen Zhao again, his eyes had lost their calmness. There was only disbelief and shock. The sacred army was the same. They'd personally experienced how terrifying the spirit was. It was a terrifying monster that could suppress hundreds of sacred army soldiers with just its consciousness. But Chen Zhao easily gained the upper hand. Just then, Zhang Tiany's magic power stopped flowing. The seal was instantly activated, and at the same time, a yellow screen was closing up at the entrance of the alternate space channel. Chen Zhao, I'm done. We can go now. Wait. Let me kill this guy first. You can use this time to cast a spell on them. I'm very fast. It doesn't matter if I kill him or not. Zhang Tianyi looked at the sacred army. I'll cast a spell on you. Don't resist. Celestial Master Zhang, you don't have to do this. I promise I won't tell anyone. The fat old bishop looked at Zhang Tianyi, aggrieved. I believe that mouth of yours. Zhang Tianyi rolled his eyes at the fat old bishop. Be honest, otherwise, I'll beat you up first. Can we all cooperate? The fat old bishop was helpless. He and his subordinates were facing the most powerful human in the world. Moreover, there were two of them. He didn't think that they could resist or negotiate with these two people. Unconvinced, Chen Zhao said, I'm fast too. Zhang Tianyi pointed to the top of his head. The seal is closing. If we don't get out before the seal is completely closed, we will be trapped here forever. Then I'll speed up. Chen Zhao suddenly attacked. There was a tearing sound in the air, followed by a series of explosions. The spiritual body was instantly hit by Chen Zhao's lightning-fast punch. Not a single punch missed. Every single punch landed on the ground. You can die now. Chen Zhao punched through the spirit's chest. Then, the holy light cannon shot out from the spirit's chest. Ah, the spirit body let out a miserable cry. A spiritual body was still a spiritual body. No matter how strong it was, it couldn't resist holy power. It was like throwing a white mouse into a glass of sulfuric acid. Moreover, Chen Zhao had used a high-level angelic crystal. It was more effective against spiritual bodies than demons. The holy power contained in the angelic crystal was like radiation to demons. But to the spiritual body, it was like magma. Because the spiritual body didn't even have a physical body, it was easier for the holy power to corrode it. Chen Zhao even felt that the spiritual body was so weak that it was indescribably weak. How could the church call this a big event? It was far from enough, right? Even Zhang Tianyi could easily deal with it, let alone Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao looked deeper into the ghastly netherwater. There seemed to be an even more terrifying existence in the depths of the ghastly netherwater. It seemed that this self-proclaimed perfect creation spirit body was not the real big boss. However, that thing didn't seem to plan on appearing. Qin Zhao collected the pieces of the destroyed spiritual body. You're really fast. Are you this fast in other aspects too? Do you want to fight here again? Qin Zhao looked at Zhang Tianyi with a dark expression. Whatever, help me first. These people shouldn't die here. I'm going to get them all out. How do we get so many people out? I can't do anything, Qin Zhao said. I'll lend you some power, Zhang Tianyi said. I'll use the cosmic cycle transference. What do you want me to do? Zhang Tianyi reached out. Just give me a hand. Qin Zhao grabbed Zhang Tianyi's hand. However, Qin Zhao felt that it was a little disgusting. Just as he was about to pull his hand back, he felt Zhang Tianyi sucking his celestial power. Is this the star-absorbing technique or the Dark North divine art? Ha! Zhang Tianyi could feel that Qin Zhao's power was completely different from his. It was even different from all spiritualists in the world. But this celestial power didn't conflict with him at all. It was like how Qin Zhao had developed a magic allergy when he swallowed other creatures with a magic source through the mouth of gluttony. No one could casually absorb or devour someone else's magic. But Zhang Tianyi realized that Qin Zhao's magic was actually versatile. Okay, let's go. Zhang Tianyi roared and raised his other hand, causing all the sacred army to disappear in an instant. Where did they go? Qin Zhao asked. I sent them out, Zhang Tianyi said. That's enough now. Come. Qin Zhao closed his eyes. Zhang Tianyi kicked off and a sword suddenly appeared in his hand. He charged at Qin Zhao. Heaven's lightning, heaven's might, spread out in all directions, sweep away all evil devils. Zhang Tianyi's sword stabbed into Qin Zhao's chest. However, the tip of the sword only managed to penetrate half an inch before it stopped. Zhang Tianyi tried a few times but couldn't go any deeper. Relax. Let go of all your muscles. Otherwise, my sword won't be able to stab in. Qin Zhao could only let go of all his muscles. Zhang Tianyi pushed forward with all his strength. The blade pierced through his back. Give me some reaction. Zhang Tianyi looked at Qin Zhao calmly. This is the treasure of Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Masters sect. You should at least give me some reaction. Chapter 2075. Your treasure is of the lightning attribute, and I happen to have the lightning attribute as well. Lightning strikes from the heavens are like a power bank to me. Do you expect a sword to make me react? Don't you feel pain when the sword pierces your body? I can heal the wound in 1 second, Qin Zhao said helplessly. The pain nerves don't even react. Whatever. Zhang Tianyi looked around and found a sacred army corpse. Then he wiped Qin Zhao's face and clothes. That's more or less it. Also, what's with the holy aura on you? Get rid of it and get the aura of these unclean souls. After preparing for a few minutes, Zhang Tianyi was finally satisfied. By then, the yellow veil was about to close. Let's go. With that, Zhang Tianyi and Qin Zhao rose into the air at the same time. When the seal was about to close completely, they passed through the yellow veil. The moment they charged out, the yellow veil kept sending attacks outwards. The attacks were very strong too. The yellow veil seemed like it was about to be broken. But after a few tries, the veil remained completely sealed. Zhang was waiting on the upper level. When he saw Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi appear, he immediately activated the seal. Seeing Chen Zhao on the verge of death, John supported Zhang Tiany's shoulder. Zhang Tiany was full of energy. He couldn't help but feel guilty. After all, Chen Zhao wasn't obligated to help them fight. But now, Chen Zhao was heavily injured. "Young man, how are you?" When John activated the seal, he also took the time to cast a holy spell on Chen Zhao. "John, activate the seal seriously. Don't do pointless things like this," Zhang Tiany yelled. "How is it pointless? This young man got hurt because of you." Zhang Tiany's face darkened. They weren't acting for John. "I'll be in charge of healing him. The most important thing for you to do now is to activate the seal on this layer before the seal on the lower layer is broken." Time was tight, but Chen Zhao had actually destroyed the terrifying spiritual body below, so the thing below shouldn't be able to break the seal so quickly. So, as long as John performed normally, there should be enough time. That was if John didn't do anything. Old John was always like that. Every time before he got down to business, he would tire himself out. It wasn't that he would affect the final result. In fact, old John always fulfilled his duties and responsibilities. But every time, it was just right. Just a little bit more and all his previous efforts would have been wasted. Therefore, cooperating with old man John was a very troublesome matter, and it was also very frightening. Chen Zhao was much more relaxed now. Even though he was a fake injured person, he could still lie on the ground and watch. Hardadef also focused on activating the seal. "Celestial Master Zhang, you're still in charge of taking care of that young man. It's fine if the seal below is broken. Those impure souls can't break through the defense of my sacred magic," old John said. However, after waiting for a long time, old John was about to complete the activation of the seal, but the seal below had yet to be opened. Hardadef imagined how intense the battle below was. Just how intense would the battle have to be before the bottommost seal was activated in order to weaken the strength of the impure souls below so much that they were unable to break through the bottommost seal? However, just when John thought that he would be able to successfully complete the seal, in the end, the bottommost seal was still broken. Large numbers of impure souls charged out of the seal and toward the three on the fourth floor. "Hardadef, activate the seal obediently. You don't have to be responsible for anything else." Zhang Tiany immediately flew up and yelled, "Dragon and Tiger Dharma!" Roar! Roar! Yellow light flashed on Zhang Tiany's body. 2 dragon and tiger divine beasts broke out of his body. In the roar of the dragon and tiger, the impure souls were killed in large numbers. Just then, a few terrifying impure souls appeared below. They weren't as strong as the spirit that Chen Zhao was facing, but they weren't much weaker. Zhang Tiany made a hand seal. "Heaven and earth, black and yellow, infinite Dharma." The dragon and tiger Dharma immediately turned into 2 beams of yellow light and shot toward the netherworld, piercing through it. The powerful impure souls were instantly pierced by the yellow light. Chen Zhao's eyes flashed with surprise. Zhang Tiany was indeed not weak. He was even more adept at dealing with spirits like this. He wasn't weaker than sacred magic at all. This was Chen Zhao's first time seeing Zhang Tiany fight. And he was already so strong right away. Zhang Tiany's reputation as the top person in the spiritual world was a bit exaggerated. But there was no doubt about his strength. And this probably wasn't Zhang Tiany's strongest move. Of course, this so-called big event probably wasn't just what Chen Zhao saw. If it was just this, it was far from the level of a big event. At least, Chen Zhao felt that it should be something that could shake the entire spiritual world. But in the current situation, either Chen Zhao or Zhang Tianyi could solve the problem. The seal has been activated. Celestial Master Zhang, take that young man. We're going upstairs. Hardadef's seal activation process was clearly much faster than Zhang Tianyi's. Of course, this didn't mean that Hardadef was stronger than Zhang Tianyi. For one, this was Hardadef's home field and he was the main person involved. He knew the seal here better than Zhang Tianyi. After all, this was where his ancestors had fought. Moreover, the seal here had been left behind by his ancestors. Thus, he knew how to activate the seal better than Zhang Tianyi. Also, Zhang Tianyi was purposely stalling for time. Because he wanted to see Chen Zhao's true strength, he was dawdling most of the time. Unfortunately, to his regret, Chen Zhao didn't show his true strength. The spiritual body that called itself a perfect creation indeed looked strong. However, the spiritual body's strength was much weaker than Zhang Tianyi had expected. Zhang Tianyi pulled Chen Zhao up and went up with Hardadef. They reached the 3rd floor. Blood Mary was in charge here. When the 23rd Blood Mary saw the heavily injured Chen Zhao, her first reaction was shock. But when she looked closer, she vaguely sensed something. 23rd Blood Mary's cheeks twitched. Blood Mary, it's your turn. Do you want me to go? I still have strength left, Hardadef asked. Hardadef was too enthusiastic, but Blood Mary didn't appreciate it at all. No need, Blood Mary said. You can just defend me. She knew that Hardadef was being kind, but she clearly didn't plan on accepting it. Chapter 2076. 23rd generation Blood Mary wasn't like old John. She wasn't a busybody, but she wouldn't avoid her own matters either. Blood Mary, you're about to die of old age. You should save some energy. Fuck off. Hearing that, 23rd Blood Mary was furious. You're the one who's about to die. Your whole family is about to die. 23rd Blood Mary was very efficient. She was even more efficient than John. Before the lower seal could be broken, 23rd Blood Mary had already completed the seal. Let's go, 23rd Blood Mary called out. Zhang Tianyi helped Chen Zhao up. 23rd Blood Mary sent a telepathic message. What are you two doing? What? Can't you see that Chen Zhao is heavily injured? Do you think I'm blind? 23rd Blood Mary didn't believe that Chen Zhao could be injured here. Is there a flaw? I can understand if Chen is injured in other areas, but it's hard for me to understand that his body is injured. Just pretend you don't know anything, Zhang Tianyi said. Why? John is with you guys too? No, he's not. He's not good at lying. It's hard for him not to give himself away, Zhang Tianyi said. That's why we keep him in the dark. Khmer Deacon? 23rd Blood Mary sharply noticed Zhang Tianyi and Chen Zhao's intentions. Zhang Tianyi didn't answer her question. However, some things could only be understood and not explained. Soon, they reached the 2nd level. The 2nd level was under the control of the fire worship sect's leader, Bifla. Bifla was a cold-faced person. Seeing everyone come up, he didn't say anything else and immediately started the process of activating the seal. Chen Zhao observed Bifla silently. If it was just in terms of magic power, Bifla's magic power was even higher than John's. Of course, most of the time, magic power didn't represent combat ability. Bifla and John didn't have a big difference in magic power. So, Chen Zhao didn't dare to say who was stronger before seeing their battle. Moreover, both of them had powerful backgrounds. One was the leader of the largest religious group. The other was the leader of an extremely prosperous religious group in West Asia. No one knew if they had any formidable trump cards in their hands. Bifla's senses were extremely sharp. As if sensing Chen Zhao's gaze, he turned to look at Chen Zhao while maintaining the magic output. "You, young man, your body has a vigorous fire of life." Chen Zhao closed his eyes and pretended not to hear anything. Everything went smoothly for Bifla to activate the seal. In fact, after the lowest and second to last seals were activated, the crisis was basically over. After that, everyone retreated to the outermost layer. A trace of disappointment flashed across Kamordakan's eyes when he saw everyone come out unscathed. However, he saw that Chen Zhao was being helped out by Zhang Tianyi. And as soon as he reached the ground, he lay on the ground. Then Chen Zhao started vomiting blood. It looked like he was badly injured. Kamordakan narrowed his eyes and stared at Chen Zhao. "Kamordakan, it's your turn. What are you waiting for?" Zhang Tianyi scolded. Just then, Chen Zhao vomited another mouthful of blood. Zhang Tianyi quickly turned his attention back to Chen Zhao. He transferred his magic to Chen Zhao without any disguise. Old John walked over. "Celestial Master Zhang, let me take a look at him. My holy magic will heal him." "No need. Most of his power comes from darkness. Your holy magic will only cause more damage to him." "Fine, but he's made a great contribution to the Vatican. If he's willing, I'm willing to purify his magic." In the spiritual world, there was no such thing as light was justice and darkness was evil. However, in most people's eyes, darkness would always make them uncomfortable. If they had a choice, perhaps many people would give up on darkness and turn to light. Old John's promise was sometimes the best reward. Old John rarely made such promises. There were ways to turn darkness into light. But it was extremely difficult. To John, Chen Zhao had made a great contribution. That was why he gave such a promise as a reward. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao wasn't interested. Of course, he wouldn't be proud of it either. What Chen Zhao needed to do now was play dead. "Chen Zhao, do you want to convert?" Zhang Tianyi asked, pretending to be polite. Then Chen Zhao completely fainted. He fainted. I can't make the decision for him. Zhang Tianyi looked at John helplessly. The moment Kamordakan's seal was completely activated, the 5 layers of seals also merged into one in an instant. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. It was finally over. Before the situation worsened completely. Before it became a big issue, they finally stopped it. To be honest, Chen Zhao was a bit disappointed. Chen Zhao was the kind of person who didn't mind big issues. "Young man, your aura is very weak." John looked at Chen Zhao worriedly. But with his holy magic, even if he really wanted to save Chen Zhao, he couldn't do anything due to the repulsion of magic. As for why John felt that Chen Zhao's aura was weak, it was completely because Chen Zhao had been holding his breath. That was why he gave others the feeling that Chen Zhao was very weak. Only Kamordakan and John had been fooled by Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi's acting. On the other hand, Bifla stood at the side without saying a word. He didn't understand. Chen Zhao's body clearly had the fire of life that was like a small sun. How could he be so weak? Bifla kept his head down. In fact, he was observing the others' expressions. Suddenly, he saw 23rd Blood Mary's lips curve into a smile. Is she an insider? Bifla looked at Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi looked anxious, but there was no anxiety or worry in his eyes. And this young man called Qin Zhao was also pretending. Who were they trying to fool? Was it John? No, neither Zhang Tianyi nor the 23rd generation Blood Mary would provoke John. If the three of them had a conflict, it would also be a big issue. The three old guys were all extremely rational people. They wouldn't do something like this. Apart from John, there was only Bifla and Kamor Deacon. Bifla glanced at Kamor Deacon from the corner of his eye. Suddenly, Bifla seemed to know something. Bifla, pass on my fire of life to him, old John said. Everyone was shocked, especially Zhang Tianyi. He didn't plan on tricking John. No need. It's not that serious. Celestial Master Zhang has his own ways. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2077. Qin Zhao, let me take you home. No, I'm fine. I'll be fine after a few days of rest. Qin Zhao stood up weakly. Even if I have to fight again, I'll win for you. Now's not the time to be stubborn, Zhang Tianyi said, pretending to be serious. I told you, I'm fine. Qin Zhao took a deep breath, but it was blood that came out. Zhang Tianyi looked at Qin Zhao with a serious expression. You're infected with an evil aura and your power leans towards darkness. You'll be the best nourishment for the aura. If you want to recover, you have to get rid of the aura as soon as possible. I'm a spiritualist too. I don't need you to teach me what to do. With that, Qin Zhao swaggered away. Looking at Qin Zhao's back, Kamor Deacon said, young people just like to be stubborn. Bifla glanced at Kamor Deacon and then at Qin Zhao's back. Yes, that's true. But if he recovers this time, he'll have a huge leap. Maybe he'll catch up to us in no time and stand shoulder to shoulder with us. How is that possible? Kamor Deacon said, narrowing his eyes. He's not even a third of my age. There are people called geniuses in this world, Bifla said. You think he's a genius too? Celestial Master Zhang brought so many disciples, but only this young man moved with him and even participated in such a dangerous battle, Bifla said. Isn't that enough? If this young man doesn't have enough power or potential, he won't be favored by Celestial Master Zhang. Murderous intent rose in Kamor Deacon's heart. After leaving everyone's sight, Qin Zhao couldn't be bothered to continue pretending. To put it bluntly, Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi were fishing. If Kamor Deacon had evil intentions, he would definitely take the bait. Back at the hotel, Fei Lai saw Qin Zhao return with bloodstains on him. She immediately went over to show concern. Qin, what's wrong? It's not mine. Qin Zhao took off his clothes. There was another rotting wound on his chest. Seeing the wound, Fei Lai was even more worried. And you said you're fine. Qin Zhao smiled bitterly and took out a special magic container. He grabbed at his chest and pulled out the rotten flesh, stuffing it into the container. His skin was unharmed. What's going on? Fishing, Qin Zhao said. He didn't need to hide anything from Fei Lai. Fei Lai immediately understood. Although she was an outsider, she had come into contact with quite a number of spiritualists. Is that your enemy? I've only met him twice, but he seems to be a little jealous of my youth and strength. It's also the first time I've met such a person. Should I throw this away? Fei Lai looked at the magic container in disgust. I still need to use it. Chen Zhao was also helpless. This thing was made by Zhang Tianyi. No one liked to have such a thing on their body. However, there was nothing he could do. Who asked him to act? Portia, cancel tomorrow's flight. But boss, I've already paid a deposit of $200,000. If I cancel it, it's alright. To Chen Zhao, he could afford to lose $200,000. Portia was speechless, but she was already used to Chen Zhao's stubbornness. Did you find it? Khmor Deacon asked. Yes, leader. That person originally planned to leave Rome today, but for some reason, he cancelled the flight. He even chartered a plane, but it's also cancelled now. Do you know why? Apparently, he's not feeling well. Khmor Deacon thought for a while. What did Zhang Tianyi, Bifla, John, and Blood Mary do? Blood Mary left Rome early this morning. Bifla seems to be leaving today too. What about Zhang Tianyi and John? Celestial Master Zhang seems to be searching everywhere today. He went to all the magic shops in Rome and bought large amounts of magic materials and herbs. What did he mainly buy? Magic materials and herbs used to purify and remove unclean things. Keep an eye on Tianyi. Record all his actions and places he goes in detail, Khmor Deacon said. Khmor Deacon said, "Oh right, give me a detailed description of that person's movements." Zhang Tianyi visited Chen Zhao every day for the past 2 days. Old Zhang, when is Khmor Deacon going to act? I haven't gone out for 2 days. Do you know how bored I am? In this historical city, I can't appreciate the crystallization of ancient wisdom and civilization. I can't enjoy the scenery of this ancient city. Do you know how painful it is? Then let me ask you. If you have $1 million and a chance to enjoy Rome, what would you choose? Enjoy Rome. What you're saying goes against your heart. Do you know how much I can earn in a day? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. I can earn at least 2 million a day. Do you think I need 1 million? I can't talk to you, Zhang Tianyi said, speechless. If Khmor Deacon doesn't act, I'll recover soon. I'm anxious too, but if he doesn't act, what can I do? Could it be that he saw through our plan? No way. Zhang Tianyi's expression didn't look good either. After all, if Khmor Deacon saw through their plan, then their actions in the past 2 days would become a monkey show. It's all your fault. You're so exaggerated and unnatural. How is it my fault? I've really acted before. How am I exaggerated? When did you act before? Once, a crew came to Dragon Tiger Mountain to film. I played the role of an otherworldly master. How much money did you give the crew? I didn't ask for money. My grand disciple put a sword on the director's neck and he happily agreed to my request. After that, he even praised me for my extraordinary temperament. Your grand disciple was there, right? The process was a bit complicated, but the director really begged me to stay in the crew. If I wasn't there, I really want to continue filming. As they spoke, the topic of conversation between the two deviated. So what if you've been in a TV show? I've filmed a movie with a high box office and even played the main role. Which movie? Do you know Animal Supermarket? I remember it was shown in China before. I was the villain who fought with an old detective from beginning to end. Oh. I remember now. It's the villain who has never shown his face. Chapter 2078. Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi didn't know where the topic had gone. In the end, Chen Zhao was the one who ended the conversation. People like Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi, who had low EQ every time they met, would never continue the conversation. Neither of them knew how to back off. Actually, both of them had high EQ in real life. Zhang Tianyi left in a huff. Because Chen Zhao had made a bet with him to see who would become an international superstar. Chen Zhao also said that he would invest in a movie and ask Steven to shoot it. He also wanted to fight for an Oscar. Of course, Chen Zhao wouldn't do that. However, he still felt happy that he could anger Zhang Tianyi. Leader, Celestial Master Zhang left the hotel in a hurry. In a hurry? Did something happen to that person's injury? Khmor Deacon's eyes flickered. He rubbed his palms together. This was a big fish. Khmor Deacon couldn't help it. Leader, that person's wife and children are in Rome. Maybe we can start with them. Khmor Deacon's eyes brightened. His wife and children have a chance. I noticed that his wife and children come out to play every day and shop everywhere. Good. Find a chance and capture his wife and children. Fei Lai, what do you think of that dress? It's nice, Fei Lai answered. Portia looked at Fei Lai in confusion. And then? And then what? Portia was even more confused. Why was Fei Lai acting so weird today? Usually, when they shopped, Fei Lai would give in-depth comments when she saw a nice dress. Then came the fitting. But today, Fei Lai just stood there. She didn't want to try it on, nor did she plan to buy it. You're not buying it? Yes. Fei Lai nodded and took out her credit card. Help me pay. Portia took the credit card. After paying, she returned to Fei Lai's side. Fei Lai, are you not feeling well? Or are you tired from shopping? No, I'm very healthy. Okay. The two walked out of the store. Suddenly, a car stopped beside them. Then a man got out and dragged Fei Lai into the car. The car started and drove away. Portia was scared silly. After a minute, Portia suddenly came to her senses. Ah! Not good. What should I do? What should I do? Boss will kill me. Portia tugged at her hair. Should I run away now? After panicking for another 3 minutes, Portia finally calmed down. No, the boss is so powerful. He must have a way to save Fei Lai. Portia quickly called Chen Zhao. Boss, bad news. Fei Lai was kidnapped. Oh. Oh? Boss, your reaction is too flat. What's wrong with you? Do you think I'm joking? No, I understand. You can go back to the hotel now. Boss, should we call the police? I'll call the police now. I told you, I don't need it. I know what to do. Portia returned to the hotel in fear. However, as soon as he entered Chen Zhao's room, he saw Fei Lai beside him. Boss. Fei Lai, what happened? Didn't I just see you being kidnapped? No, not at all. Fei Lai turned to look at Chen Zhao. She did not know exactly what had happened. However, Chen Zhao had told her not to go out today. From Portia's words, Fei Lai seemed to have gone out with someone who looked like her. She had even mistaken the person for her. Moreover, the person had been kidnapped. This meant that Chen Zhao knew what had happened. Or rather, it was a trap set up by Chen Zhao. But who were those? Portia looked at Fei Lai and Chen Zhao in confusion. That was just a joke, Chen Zhao said, smiling. Joke? You're saying that it was a joke? Portia's expression was furious. Boss, Fei Lai, you're too much. Do you know how worried I am? Worried about what? Worried that I'll blame it on you? Of course. After all, I went shopping with Fei Lai. Just then, Chen Zhao received a call. A voice came from the phone. Your woman is in my hands. If you don't want her to suffer, come alone. The location is an old church 35 kilometers outside of Rome. Who are you? What do you want? The other party didn't waste any more time. He hung up right away. Chen Zhao looked at Fei Lai. Fei Lai, don't go out today. Got it. Fei Lai nodded. Then, Chen Zhao called Zhang Tianyi. Old Zhang, it's done. The person asked me to meet outside the city. Come and protect Fei Lai and my child. I'm going to watch a show. Watch you? Master, Chen Zhao cursed. Chen Zhao cursed. If anything happens to my family, I'll turn all the disciples of Dragon Tiger Mountain into human centipedes. Don't worry. You can ask Blood Mary to keep an eye on them. Her? Didn't she go back the day before yesterday? No, Zhang Tianyi said calmly. Okay. Chen Zhao nodded. Between Zhang Tianyi and the 23rd generation Blood Mary, it was fine for either of them to protect their family. Chen Zhao changed his clothes and went out. Portia was very angry at Chen Zhao's bad taste. But she really could not do anything to him. She could not even resign. Chen Zhao arrived at the appointed place. It was easy to find the abandoned church. Chen Zhao coughed and entered the church. There were a few spiritualists in the church. Apart from them, there was no one else. You keep your promise. The leading spiritualist looked at Chen Zhao. Cough, cough, where's my woman? Chen Zhao asked in a weak voice. Don't worry. We'll reunite you soon. A smile appeared on the spiritualist's face. But before that, you better wear this. The spiritualist tossed a shackle to Chen Zhao's feet. Do you think this is meaningful to me? Even if I'm injured? Do you think it's a normal shackle? When Chen Zhao picked it up, he realized that there were magic waves on it. It seemed to be an alchemy product. Chen Zhao obediently put the shackle on. The spiritualists all heaved a sigh of relief. Is it okay now? Chen Zhao looked at them. Can you take me to see my wife now? Not yet. Are you going back on your word? Don't make it sound so bad. There's someone else who wants to see you. Who? You'll know when you get there. I'm not going anywhere until I see my wife. Do you have a choice now? The spiritualists all looked at Chen Zhao with evil smiles. They seemed to want to teach Chen Zhao a lesson when he resisted. Chen Zhao took a deep breath. Fine. Chapter 2079. I heard he's a super genius. Do we need to be more careful? Of course. I remember that one we hunted once broke free, so we need to be more careful. The spiritualists cast a dozen more binding spells on Chen Zhao and used a few magic tools. On the other hand, Chen Zhao accepted the binding spells and magic tools obediently. Only after completing a series of spells did they feel relieved. Then, Chen Zhao was thrown into the trunk. It was the first time in his life that someone had put him in the trunk. He had to admit that it was a rare experience. The car didn't enter the city. Chen Zhao could feel the strong bumps. It definitely wasn't a cement road. Then, Chen Zhao was dragged out of the car. Chen Zhao first observed his surroundings. It was a small house in the woods. Chen Zhao was dragged into the house. Then, he saw Feilai, who was also tied up. She wasn't the real Feilai, but Qin Zhao still felt very uncomfortable. I've been brought here. Can you let go of my wife now? Idiot, how is that possible? The spiritualists all laughed. Do you really think it's that simple? Your woman will be played by us in front of you. And you can only watch helplessly, unable to do anything. I can give you as much money as you want, Qin Zhao said helplessly. As long as you name a price, I definitely won't bargain. This is also the only time you have the right to name a price. Do you think this is about money? You're the prey of some big shot. Who? Which big shot? In Rome, there aren't many people who can be called big shots. Qin Zhao followed along and asked. Me. Just then, Khmor Deacon's voice rang out. He pushed open the door and walked in. Mr. Khmor Deacon, I don't understand. Is this your idea? Yes, it's my idea. Khmor Deacon nodded. I need an explanation, Qin Zhao said angrily. Otherwise, this isn't over. Of course not, but do you think you'll have a chance to say anything to others? I understand. I was careless. Qin Zhao took a deep breath. But I still hope that you can let my wife go. How is that possible? Even if I allow it, my subordinates won't allow it. They work for me, so I have to give them some benefits, don't you think? Mr. Khmor Deacon, I don't understand. I don't think I've offended anyone. Why are you treating me like this? There are a lot of strange things in this world. You don't need to understand everything. Even if you say so, I still hope that you can tell me, at least before I die, can you fulfill my last wish? Don't you know that I have a nickname in the spiritual world? Genius Killer. I've heard people talk about this nickname before, but I don't believe it. There's really such a senseless person in this world who would kill someone because he's afraid of being surpassed by the younger generation. I don't think it's true. Hee hee. Khmor Deacon laughed. Do you know my background? Qin Zhao asked. Are you trying to scare me with your background? If that's your plan, I advise you to shut up. I'm not interested in your background. I've hunted all kinds of people in the past. I don't care about your background. No, I want to tell you the characteristics of my power, Qin Zhao said. Oh? Power characteristics? What kind of power characteristics? Khmor Deacon's interest was piqued. He looked at Qin Zhao curiously. My spell is called Release. If you can't fulfill my request, I'll increase my power greatly. I'm heavily injured now, but I can still fight, Qin Zhao said. So, you'd better satisfy my curiosity. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble. Khmor Deacon frowned. He really didn't know that such a strange spell existed in this world. However, there were all kinds of strange things in the world. Thus, while he was disappointed, he didn't have too many suspicions. If you ask me to let you go, do I have to let you go too? Of course. This is the power of my spell. I can make many unreasonable requests. If you don't agree, I'll become stronger and stronger, Qin Zhao said. Of course, with my current condition, even if I become stronger, I won't be able to hold on. The best result is to die with you. Khmor Deacon raised an eyebrow. This spell was really strange. But there must be some restriction that he didn't know. What's the restriction? The more difficult the request is, the more mana it consumes. This is also the flaw of my magic. For example, if I ask an ordinary person for $100 million, this request will be too much for the other party, and my mana will be instantly depleted. So that's it. Deacon was enlightened. If this spell only made requests and would become stronger if they weren't satisfied, then it was practically invincible. Moreover, from Qinzhao, he roughly understood that this spell not only required a large amount of mana, but also a strong body. Looks like you already understand the rules of my spell. There's something you didn't say, right? You also have to respond to my requests, right? Deacon said, acting smart. Otherwise, you wouldn't have told me your trump card so easily. Smart. Qinzhao nodded in approval. But right now, I can't satisfy any of your requests. Can you give me this spell? Deacon asked. First, you have to answer my question, Qinzhao said. Why did you hunt so many geniuses? Don't give me those bullshit reasons. I want the truth. Deacon looked at Qinzhao. Just then, he felt that Qinzhao's aura seemed to have become stronger. As expected, he really mastered this spell. For the first time, Deacon wanted to master spells of other schools. If he used this spell well, it would definitely be very powerful. He might even surpass those top existences. Okay, I'll tell you the reason, Deacon said. A smile appeared on Qinzhao's face. It wasn't easy to trick this guy into telling the truth. In this world, you're not the only one who has a special spell. I agree that I have a special spell too. Chapter 2080. Qinzhao immediately pricked up his ears. The others didn't seem to know why Deacon kept hunting those famous geniuses. But now, was finally willing to tell them his true reason. I have the magic of deprivation, which is jealousy, said. Deacon said, I've never been a genius, but I can take away the talent of a genius. Every genius is outstanding in one aspect. This deprivation must have its limits, Qinzhao guessed. It can't be without any restrictions. Although his so-called release magic was bullshit, the restrictions were based on this magic. The restrictions were based on the magic's characteristics. Moreover, many spells weren't as perfect as they seemed. There were many special spells in the world, so many that normal people couldn't imagine them. However, very few spiritualists were willing to practice this kind of magic with special characteristics. None of the top spiritualists in the world practiced special spells. In fact, in the long river of history, none of the top-notch spiritualists practiced special magic. It wasn't because special spells were difficult, but because there were many restrictions. Smiled and walked up to Qinzhao. It's simple. It's a bet. The winner takes it all and the loser loses. There's no exemption or rejection. With that, tapped Qinzhao's forehead. Qinzhao suddenly felt a spell enter his mind. This spell wasn't dispelled by his elemental constitution. This is a bet and a duel. You defeat me or I defeat you. If you lose, the power you're most proud of will belong to me. Qinzhao looked at Deacon. If you lose, what do I get? Of course, the part I'm most proud of, said matter-of-factly. This bet is fair. Qinzhao laughed. Fair? Now I'm lying down and you're standing. You're telling me it's fair? At least we're paying the same price. You're using the part you're most proud of to exchange for the part I'm most proud of. In the past, how many geniuses' pride did you steal like this? Let me think. Many. Some have unparalleled power, some have lightning-like speed, some have tremendous magic power, and some strange spells. If that's the case, why did you use such a method? Or could it be that you still don't dare to have a fair fight with others after stealing so many people's powers? To me, victory is the most important thing. The result is the most important, not fairness. I see, Qin Zhao said. Then I want you to give me a fair fight. Hee. You said that this spell of yours is flawed. You can't bear much power right now. Bang! Just then, the magic tool on Qin Zhao suddenly snapped. Khmer Daikan raised his eyebrows in surprise. Just because I can't bear too much doesn't mean I can't bear any. Qin Zhao stood up again. Then he broke the shackles on his hands. Khmer Deacon's expression changed slightly. Suddenly, he saw Fei Light behind Qin Zhao. He looked closely. Shock flashed through Khmer Deacon's eyes. He hadn't looked carefully before, but now that he did, he realized something was wrong. Why isn't this woman breathing? Just like wood? Was he dead? No, his subordinates hadn't tasted the sweetness yet. They couldn't have killed such a beautiful woman. Claymore Deacon suddenly thought of a terrifying possibility. Heavenly Spirit Manifestation. Reveal yourself. Khmer Deacon suddenly shouted in a low voice. This was a spell he'd stolen from a disciple of Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Masters sect. This spell could nullify all shape-shifting, invisibility, and concealment spells. Instantly, Fei Lai turned into a yellow paper doll. Claymore's expression changed drastically. His subordinates also stared at the yellow paper doll in disbelief. This is mind-controlling paper doll. Claymore's expression grew even worse. He stared at Qin Zhao. You tricked me. How dare you scheme against me? Tricked? No, I didn't. It's just a show. Bang! Bang! By now, Qin Zhao didn't need to hide anymore. Qin Zhao directly shattered the binding spells on him. But if you didn't have any ill intentions, you wouldn't jump into the pit yourself, right? Claymore stared at Qin Zhao, annoyed. So what if I'm exposed? I'll kill you and everything will be solved. That's if you can kill me. Smiling, Qin Zhao looked at Claymore. Now, we can finally have a fair fight. Claymore's expression turned cold. Kill him. Don't hold back. The spiritualists immediately attacked Qin Zhao. All sorts of spells shot at Qin Zhao. But before the spells could even get close to him, they dissipated. Qin Zhao raised his arm slowly, as if he didn't feel any spells. In fact, he didn't feel anything at all. A bolt of lightning flashed. A spiritualist's head exploded. Then Qin Zhao aimed his palm at a second spiritualist. Bang! Another bolt of lightning. Another head. Another life. Khmer Deacon watched everything unfold in silence. Wasn't this guy's forte strength enhancement? He actually knew lightning magic too. Khmer Deacon raised his guard. But he didn't stop Qin Zhao at all. Just like that, he watched as Qin Zhao killed his subordinates. In fact, even if Qin Zhao didn't do anything, he would kill all the subordinates who'd exposed his secret. Qin Zhao didn't show mercy. After killing the spiritualists, he looked at Claymore. Now it's your turn. You don't really think you can fight me after killing a few of my subordinates, right? Even Zhang Tianyi can't say that he'll win for sure. Really? Qin Zhao looked at Khmer Deacon mockingly. He's right here. Say it to him personally. What? Claymore was shocked. Was Zhang Tianyi really here? Ha! Look at how scared you are. Don't be so nervous. He won't be here so soon. You still have some time. Claymore also realized that since Qin Zhao and Zhang Tianyi had set this trap together, Zhang Tianyi was probably nearby. Then Zhang Tianyi was very likely to be nearby. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before Zhang Tianyi came out from some corner. It seemed like he had to finish Qin Zhao as soon as possible and steal his power. Divine Emperor of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 2081. Flash. Suddenly, Khmer Dakin moved. Khmer Dakin instantly appeared behind Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao didn't even have time to react. Cole's fist was already smashing toward the back of Qin Zhao's head. Bang! Die! Khmer Dakin's confident punch landed on Qin Zhao's head. Even though he'd fought with Qin Zhao before. Even though he'd lost once in strength. But it didn't mean that Qin Zhao's defense could block his fist. Especially when it came from behind. But Cole realized that Qin Zhao didn't react at all. Qin Zhao didn't react at all. Instead, he felt extreme pain. His fist had been injured by his own strength. Khmer Dakin abruptly retreated and pulled away. He stared at Qin Zhao in disbelief. Such a strong body. Khmer Dakin saw that his fist had actually turned into mush. But this injury wasn't much of a threat to him. Khmer Dakin immediately cast a few healing spells on himself and the wound on his hand quickly recovered. Only then did Qin Zhao turn his head to look at Khmer Dakin. Khmer Dakin looked at Qin Zhao in confusion. Wasn't Qin Zhao's reaction too slow? Perhaps his punch hadn't completely hurt Qin Zhao just now. Maybe he'd gotten a concussion. Qin Zhao looked at Khmer Dakin. Mr. Khmer Dakin, your fists seem a bit weak. Where did you get your strength from? Seems like the genius you chose is average. Khmer Dakin narrowed his eyes at Qin Zhao. Keep mocking me. Soon, you won't be able to laugh anymore. Really? Are you sure you can do it? Qin Zhao rubbed his chin and looked at Cole. How about this? I'll stand here and see if you can really hurt me. Khmer Dakin's face turned cold. Qin Zhao was really too arrogant, so arrogant that he couldn't stand it. You will regret this. Khmer Dakin snorted coldly. Khmer Dakin appeared behind Qin Zhao again. But this time, he used his finger to stab the joint between Qin Zhao's neck and the back of his head. This was one of the weakest parts of the human body. To what extent exactly? There was once a person who was hit on the back of his head by his parents, resulting in high-level paralysis. Khmer Dakin had once stolen a martial art that a martialist was most proud of. This martialist was best at attacking the weak points of the human body. After Khmer Dakin seized this ability and combined it with his own magic, this martial art became even more dangerous and terrifying. But Qin Huihui was still unmoved by Khmer Dakin's attack. Khmer Dakin tried a few more times, but the result was the same. Physical attacks were useless. Khmer Dakin's expression turned slightly solemn. However, physical attacks weren't Khmer Dakin's strongest means of attack. Qin Zhao stood where he was, a smile on his face. You don't look like you have a solution. A murderous glint flashed in Khmer Dakin's eyes. Can't be helped. You think too highly of yourself. This time, Khmer Dakin pulled away, planning to teach Qin Zhao a lesson with magic. Clay Dakin had a good idea. Curse. Fatal weakness. Khmor Deacon first cast a fatal weakness curse. However, the moment the curse landed on Qinzhao, Khmer realized that it actually disintegrated into the most basic magical power and was absorbed by Qinzhao. Ha! I forgot to tell you that I have absolute immunity to curses. If you want to use a curse on me, it's best if it's at the Demon King level. Khmor Deacon realized that he'd really underestimated Qinzhao. His many trump cards were actually useless against Qinzhao. Khmor Deacon still didn't give up. Death Ray. Qinzhao was no stranger to this Death Ray. Qinzhao had already encountered quite a few enemies who used Death Rays. In the supernatural organization, Jalanash also knew how to use Death Ray. But the Death Ray suddenly disintegrated when it was less than 50 centimeters from Qinzhao. Impossible. This isn't a curse. Khmor Deacon stared at Qinzhao in shock. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that my magic resistance has also reached an extremely high level. Although it's not as high as my curse resistance, ordinary magic still can't hurt me. As you can see, your Death Ray can't even get within 50 centimeters of me. You need a stronger magic attack. Khmor Deacon sucked in a breath of cold air. Was this young man a monster? His physical, curse, and magic defense had all reached such a level. Even the dragon race couldn't possibly have such a terrifying resistance. How did this guy do it? I recommend you use physical attacks because they can at least get close to my body. Shut up. Khmor Deacon was furious. He felt like Qinzhao was playing with him. All of a sudden, Khmor Deacon's palms shot out Death Rays one after another. But just like the first Death Ray, it disintegrated before it could get close to Qinzhao. If you can't even break through my magic resistance, then I'm really disappointed in you. Mr. Khmor Deacon, please keep working hard. I believe you can do it. Qinzhao didn't attack, but he continued to harass him verbally. And Khmor Deacon was indeed verbally harassed by Qinzhao. He started to lose his sense of propriety. He became irritable. Go to hell. Khmor Deacon unleashed another top-level spell, Dark Blast, without caring about anything else. A turbid black ball smashed toward Qinzhao. But the result was still the same. The moment the black ball neared Qinzhao, it burst like a balloon. It didn't explode violently. Instead, it disintegrated directly. You seem to have improved. You need to work harder. Khmor Deacon was already panicking. That attack just now was close to his strongest magic attack. But he still couldn't touch Qinzhao directly. This made him start to panic. Qinzhao suddenly raised his hand and aimed at Khmor Deacon. Bang! Khmor Deacon felt a terrifying gust of air brush past his side. When he looked back, he saw that the trees behind him had fallen hundreds of meters, as if they'd been blown down by a strong gust of wind. If you don't continue, it'll be my turn. Khmor Deacon felt like his scalp was going to explode. What was wrong with this guy? Why did he feel even more terrifying than when he was facing an enraged Zhang Tianyi? Chapter 2082. Khmor still remembered that many years ago, he'd faced an enraged Zhang Tianyi. Zhang Tianyi had been so terrifying back then. He was like a demon that had crawled out of hell. His face was so ferocious that it seemed like he wanted to swallow him alive. But now, the frivolous Qinzhao was even scarier than the Zhang Tianyi in his memory. What kind of destructive power was that? Khmor's breathing became even more nervous. Clearly, the man before him wasn't the genius he'd known in the past. He'd killed so many geniuses. He'd caused so much pain that they wished they were dead. Kamal Deacon knew geniuses all too well. The man before him wasn't a genius at all. He was a monster. If Kamal Deacon didn't do it, Chen Zhao would. But Khmer couldn't even break through Chen Zhao's defense. Yet, he had to keep releasing his magic. Biflo was also present, but he didn't show himself. He was here to watch the show. He'd also seen Chen Zhao's abnormal combat ability. Biflo looked in another direction. An area that even he couldn't sense. Because he couldn't sense that area, so he knew who was there. Zhang Tianyi was there. Had Zhang Tianyi trained him? Why did he feel like he was scarier than Zhang Tianyi? Although Khmer Deacon was considered weak in the circle of the top spiritualists, he was still a nobody. But he shouldn't be unable to break through that young man's defense, right? Even if Khmer could really break through Chen Zhao's defense, he wouldn't be able to do so. His magic's power probably wasn't even 1/10. If it was him, would he end up like Khmer Deacon? Chen Zhao kept smiling at Khmer Deacon. You disappoint me. You call yourself a genius killer? You can't even break through my defense. Can you really kill those geniuses? Or am I not a genius? If that's the case, I suddenly feel like I should be angry. Khmer Deacon wanted to cry. He wanted to kill Chen Zhao too. But he really couldn't. At this moment, Khmer really hoped that Zhang Tianyi could appear as soon as possible. But Zhang Tianyi still didn't appear. What do you want for you to let me go? Khmer Deacon's tone finally softened. Impossible. Chen Zhao shrugged. How can I let you go? Aren't you too naive? Even if the Heavenly King himself came, it wouldn't be of any use. Must you force me? Do you know who I am? The words you gave me before, I'll return them to you now. I don't care who you are or what your background is, you're dead. If I die, the Holy Stone cult will fall into chaos, and it might cause social unrest. Other people should worry about that kind of thing. I don't need to worry about it, and I don't need you, a dying man, to worry about it. Khmer Deacon gritted his teeth and stared at Chen Zhao. It seemed that Chen Zhao had made up his mind to kill him. I curse you to be. Suddenly, Chen Zhao appeared before Khmer Deacon at a speed too fast for him to cover his ears. He grabbed Khmer Deacon's mouth. Sure, if you want to fight, then fight. Even if you want to curse others, it doesn't matter. Don't curse my family. Wool, Khmer Deacon struggled, but in the next instant, a cruel smile appeared on Chen Zhao's face. Slap, Chen Zhao pulled Khmer Deacon's chin off. Ah! Ah! Khmer Deacon's screams filled the night sky. Before you chose me, did you consider whether I'm like your prey in the past? Looks like you can't speak. You must have considered this problem, but you definitely didn't take it seriously. Reality proves that you really should consider this problem. Otherwise, if there's a next time, you'll probably die a worse death, Chen Zhao said pretentiously. But there probably won't be a next time. No, there definitely won't be a next time, Chen Zhao muttered to himself. Plus, it'll be hard for you to arrive early and meet someone who can give you a more tragic death than me. I'm good at killing, especially in cruel ways. My main profession is a doctor. I know how to give you the most painful death. Chen Zhao murmured to himself. For example, Chen Zhao flashed again and grabbed Khmer Deacon's arm. Crack! Chen Zhao twisted Khmer Deacon's arm like a fried dough twist. Don't break it. Just connect the tendons and bones like this. This way, the pain nerves in the entire arm will react. It'll be much better than breaking the arm. Kamor Deacon's expression was completely twisted. The intense pain made him unable to make a sound. But the most painful part isn't the injury to the limb, but the rupture of the internal organs, like this. Bang! Chen Zhao gave Kamor Deacon a heavy punch. The rupture of the liver, spleen, and stomach is many times more painful than when a woman gives birth. In just a few rounds, Kamor Deacon had been tortured to the point where he didn't look human anymore. Kamor Deacon was still alive, but he was on the verge of death. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of Kamor Deacon. Kamor Deacon raised his head slightly and saw that it was Zhang Tianyi. Celestial Master Zhang, save me! Save me from this lunatic! Ha! Kamor Deacon, why do you think I'm here to save you? You're a powerful person. You represent justice. How can you allow this kind of private punishment? I won't do anything. I'll just watch you get tortured and then killed. Zhang Tianyi looked at Kamor Deacon, his face filled with pleasure and satisfaction. You can't do this. How can you? Why can't I? Why do you think I can't? Old Zhang, piss off. Why are you beating around the bush with him? Also, look at his missing chin. He can't even chat with you. How do you plan to kill him? Chen Zhao opened his palm and 2 brain-eating bugs appeared in it. You actually know how to summon these monsters. That's a spell from the voodoo sect. Zhang Tianyi couldn't help but take another look. These things are really disgusting. Yes, but don't you think it'll be even more disgusting if these monsters eat his head? Kamor Deacon climbed up with difficulty, using all 4 limbs. He had to escape. He didn't want to stay here. This guy was too terrifying. No, these 2 had no bottom line. But before he could get far, Chen Zhao's feet crushed his spine. Don't be in a hurry to escape. We've just decided your cause of death. Chapter 2083. Just then, Chen Zhao suddenly felt that there was another person in his little world. When Chen Zhao looked up, the person also appeared. It was Bifla, someone they'd met before. Bifla had appeared before Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao wasn't sure. He'd only appeared after he'd discovered him. He'd only discovered him after Bifla appeared. But he was sure that Bifla hadn't just arrived. Mr. Bifla, hello. Are you here to stop me and old Zhang? Bifla. Save me. Save me. Kamor Deacon cried out with difficulty. Bifla seemed to be his last hope. If it was Bifla, he would definitely be able to save him. Bifla glanced at Kamor Deacon casually and then looked away. Mr. Chen, Celestial Master Zhang, hello. Bifla didn't call Chen Zhao young man anymore. Instead, he used a respectful tone. Actually, in the spiritual world, there was also a clear distinction. The strong communicated with the strong while the weak communicated with the weak. When Bifla first saw Chen Zhao, it was because Chen Zhao was beside Zhang Tianyi. At that time, Chen Zhao was at most Zhang Tianyi's junior. Bifla obviously wouldn't communicate with a junior. Calling Chen Zhao young man was already giving Zhang Tianyi face. But it was different now. Bifla believed that Chen Zhao had the right to talk to him on equal terms. You're here to plead for him? No, he deserved to die. I don't have any relationship with him, and he killed a disciple in the fire worship sect. He was an outstanding disciple, so I have no reason to plead for leniency for him. That's good. Chen Zhao nodded. Otherwise, we'll both be embarrassed if I reject you. I want to spar with you, Bifla said. Spar with me? Forget it. I don't think you're my match. Although Bifla was a senior, Chen Zhao's tone was still rather arrogant. Bifla wasn't angry. From the first time Chen Zhao saw Bifla, Bifla's expression had always been sour, as if someone owed him 5 million. I know, but I want you to take one of my moves, Bifla said. Just one move? Chen Zhao asked, tilting his head. Yes. Bifla nodded. As long as you agree, no matter what the result is, I won't tell anyone about what I saw today. Okay, come. Chen Zhao nodded. Bifla raised his hand and pointed his index and middle fingers at Chen Zhao. Death Ray. A beam of red light shot out from Bifla's fingertip. Instantly, the death ray hit Chen Zhao's chest. There was a small black spot where Chen Zhao's chest had been hit. Chen Zhao stared at Bifla in shock. Impressive. One had to know that when Khmer Deacon used the same move, he couldn't even break through his own defense. Even Khmer Deacon's crazy death ray couldn't break through Chen Zhao's elemental body. However, Bifla's one move, and it wasn't even his strongest attack, was enough to prove that Chen Zhao's elemental body was useless against him. Very powerful. This was a person who was many times stronger than Khmer Deacon. This was someone who truly stood at the pinnacle of the supernatural world. However, this was something that was within reason. If the so-called pinnacle of the supernatural world were all people like Khmer Deacon, then Chen Zhao would be greatly disappointed. Khmer Deacon would be greatly disappointed. Even though Khmer Deacon had stolen the proudest abilities of so many geniuses. In the end, he didn't cultivate them himself. Those weren't his things. The simplest example was the same death ray. Khmer Deacon's power and penetrative power were many times weaker than Bifla's. This was the difference. Is it over? Chen Zhao asked. Bifla nodded and said, that's enough. Can I stay and watch his execution? There's nothing to see. Dark magma spread under Chen Zhao's feet and extended toward Khmer Deacon. What's this? Don't come over. Don't come over. Khmer Deacon screamed in terror, Celestial Master Zhang. Bifla. Save me. Please. Save me. Both Zhang Qianyi and Bifla turned a blind eye to Khmer Deacon's cry for help. In their eyes, Khmer Deacon had never been someone worth saving or helping. Perhaps they weren't good people in the purest sense. But they both had their bottom lines. Come, Mr. Khmer Deacon. Repeat after me. May the darkness be with you. You demon, goodbye. The dark magma completely swallowed Khmer Deacon. Just then, Chen Zhao's spirits rose. Then, he saw the entire world turn black. Only the dark magma under his feet emitted red light. What was going on? Was this an alternate dimension? Why did he suddenly come here? Is anyone here? Chen Zhao called loudly. It was a strange feeling. Chen Zhao didn't know why he was here either. Just then, a figure appeared in the darkness. The figure looked exactly like Chen Zhao. They had the same face, the same height, and the same clothes. Who are you? Are you going to tell me that you're me or something like that? Or is it that you're my inner demon or something, and I'm going to kill you here, or else you're going to kill me? Can I say something first? The person, who looked exactly like Chen Zhao, spoke. If you have something different to say, I'll allow you to speak. Chen Zhao acted a bit talkative before this person who looked like he was looking at a mirror. Wait. If you want to fight, then there's no need. Let me introduce myself. I'm Leviathan, the king of jealousy. Both my consciousness and yours were pulled here. Don't ask me why. I don't know either. However, after hearing that the person was Leviathan, Chen Zhao was so calm that it was indescribable. Chen Zhao had interacted with too many kings of hell. He seemed to have interacted with half of them. The handsome demon, the king of sloth, the king of wrath, and now the king of jealousy. It wasn't strange at all. What do you mean you don't know either? You're the king of hell after all. How can you not know? I really don't know. At least, I've never experienced something like this. But I guess it has something to do with my bloodline. Me? Your bloodline? Impossible. I don't think I have your bloodline. Then let's analyze it one by one and see if we can find the reason why we're here, Leviathan said. That's good. Your bloodline should have been taken from someone else. Did you just make a bet with someone and win? 9 Heavens Divine King. Chapter 2084. Yes, Chen Zhao answered. Why are you the same as me? Is this your transformation spell? Or do you have a special purpose? I have thousands of faces, the king of jealousy said. Everyone will see a different face when they see me. Chen Zhao looked at the king of jealousy, who was also thinking. Strange. Even if you just took someone else's bloodline, you can't summon me here. The king of jealousy looked around. There was complete nothingness in this space. Apart from him and Chen Zhao, there was nothing else. He didn't even know where this place was, nor how to leave. This was something that had never happened to him before. Apart from the human before him who had his bloodline. There were no other clues. You seem to have the bloodline of another king of hell? The king of jealousy stared at Chen Zhao. Is it obvious? Chen Zhao asked, spreading his hands. It's obvious to me. After all, I'm much stronger than you. How many kings of hell do you know? The smell on your body is very complicated. I can be sure that you know more than one king of hell. Half. If you're included, it's more than half. Strange. How can they know the same human? The king of jealousy asked, confused. Did you get the result? The king of jealousy shook his head. No. Has something like this happened to you before? No. Back then, I summoned the projection of Samuel, the king of wrath. He's in the human world. He's my contracted demon now. What? Samuel entered the human world? You can actually summon Samuel's projection? His projection is so weak that you can crush it easily. Samuel's projection was very, very weak, but it couldn't be killed. At least, Chen Zhao's current power couldn't kill him. He had an almost immortal body. Samuel's projection was like a drop of water in a vast ocean. Even if the drop of water evaporated, it could gather another drop of water in an extremely short time. So, in a sense, Samuel's projection in the human world was immortal. And you even made Samuel your contract demon. I told you, this is his projection, not his real body. So troublesome. The king of jealousy was still having a headache. Chen Zhao took out his beer and snacks and sat down. Take your time to think about it. I'll rest for a while. After all, I'm a human, and I get hungry. Hunger? The king of jealousy turned to look at Chen Zhao. I just realized that you and I entered this space with our real bodies. Oh, did you find something? Since you and I have formed a connection, and it was also my main body that pulled me into this space, it means that we are definitely related. Perhaps we need to make a contract. Contract? You are the king of hell, are you sure you want to form a contract with me? Of course, is there a problem? I'm fine with it, Qin Zhao said matter-of-factly. Having a king of hell as my contract demon isn't a loss to me at all. Who told you that I'm going to be your contracted demon? Then what do you mean by a contract? Establishing a contract isn't limited to a master-slave contract. Qin Zhao didn't plan on forming any relationship with the king of hell other than a master-servant relationship. After all, he was the king of hell, the king of jealousy. If Qin Zhao wasn't careful, he might be crushed into pieces. Actually, it has nothing to do with the contract. Think about it, the reason we were sent here is because we have something in common, bloodline. When I received your bloodline, we formed a connection. It's this connection that brought us here. So, as long as there's a way to break this connection, we can leave this place. Of course, Qin Zhao was only guessing. Even Qin Zhao couldn't be completely sure if it was really like what he said. Break the connection? The king of jealousy snapped his fingers. Instantly, Qin Zhao returned to the human world. Qin Zhao, what happened to you just now? Zhang Tianyi didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that Qin Zhao had been distracted for a moment. Qin Zhao looked around, then at Zhang Tianyi and Bifla. Bifla also looked at Qin Zhao. Did you disappear for a moment? A moment? Qin Zhao looked at the two. Did I just disappear for a moment? That space was really strange, but what was the point of that space? Qin Zhao, what exactly happened to you? Nothing. Did you guys eat dinner? No. Great. You can treat me to dinner. I thought you'd say you'd treat us to dinner. I did you a big favor. Is it hard for you to treat me to dinner? Actually, you're just venting your anger, right? I should be the one helping you. After all, it's not easy to find a sandbag who can endure your anger without any psychological burden. Next time, don't look for me, you stingy bastard. Qin Zhao turned and left, dissatisfied. When he returned to the hotel, Portia was still complaining endlessly. Chen, go and explain to Portia. She feels like she's been fooled. Fei Lai wanted Qin Zhao to comfort Portia. Qin Zhao walked up to Portia. Portia, did you forget how much money you still owe me? If you keep nagging, I'll charge you 50% more than the bank's interest. What time? Portia stopped talking. Qin Zhao could always use the most precise angle to hit her soft spot. Just then, Qin Zhao's phone rang. Hey, Xin Li, uncle, we're leaving tonight. Tonight? Okay, where are you now? I'll send you off. No need, uncle. We're leaving soon. I'm not going to interfere. I'm just sending you off. Where are you now? Well, it's an abandoned dock 130 kilometers southwest of Rome. We will set off in the early hours of the morning. I'll go now, Qin Zhao said. When Qin Zhao arrived, he saw a super luxurious cruise ship at the abandoned dock. There were many people on the cruise ship, and it was emitting a huge amount of magic power. All the people on the ship were spiritualists. Qin Zhao saw Xin Li, Moore, Ruan Faxburn, Lisa, and Colin at the dock. Of course, their partner, Godaris, was also there. Do you know that guy over there? Godaris looked at Qin Zhao, who was walking over. It's my uncle, Xin Li said. He's here to send us off. He knows what we're doing? Goddess asked, displeased. I know, but Uncle won't interfere in our affairs. Chapter 2085. Chen Zhao just walked over casually. Follow, dream, WW, Suimen, Uncle. Xian Li walked up. Chen Zhao hugged Xian Li, be careful. Got it, Uncle. I'll be careful. I know. I'll send you a message if I'm in danger. Okay, I won't go into details. Chen Zhao looked at Goddess and walked over. Hello, sir. Hello, you're Goddess? Yes. What can I do for you? Goddess faced Chen Zhao calmly. Nothing, but please take good care of Xian Li. I don't want her to get hurt. Of course. I'll take good care of her, Goddess said casually. However, she clearly didn't take his words to heart. Yes, Goddess said casually, but she clearly didn't take his words to heart. Not long after, it was time to set off. Xian Li and the others boarded the ship. Then, the ship sailed out of the harbor. Xian Li had been standing on the deck. Even though they were already very far away, she could still see Chen Zhao standing under the flickering street lights on the abandoned dock. Your uncle seems to be really nice to you. Goddess walked over to Xian Li. Of course, Xian Li said proudly. He's the best uncle. If he's so nice, why did he let you take the risk? Of course he objected, Xian Li said softly. But in the end, he still succumbed to my stubbornness. Of course, she knew that her adventure would worry her family. But she also didn't want to seek protection under Chen Zhao's wings forever. The ship sailed into the distant sea. When the 12:00 bell rang, everyone saw a huge whirlpool appear in front of the cruise ship. What's going on? Why is there such a huge whirlpool here? Ruan Fazaban's expression changed slightly. No, this isn't a naturally formed whirlpool, Lisa said. It feels more like some kind of giant spell. What should we do? Kalan asked. Abandon the ship? Ruan Fazaban glanced at the spiritualists on the ship and shook his head. No need. It seems like they're not panicking at all. We don't need to panic either. Even if something happens, they'll be the first to suffer. At this moment, Goddess arrived at the bow of the cruise ship. She opened her arms and began to chant a beautiful tune. Everyone's spirits rose. Is this the music in Goddess's score? It's really nice. This voice is full of magic. Fazaban of Ruan frowned and looked at Goddess, who was at the bow of the ship. You'd better block your ears with magic. What happens if it's not blocked? What if I don't know how? Nothing much will happen. Although the most beautiful things are precious, they will make you lose the ability to appreciate music in your life. In the future, all the music you hear will become useless. At that moment, heads began to emerge from the seawater. The necks of these heads were long and thin, and they all had the same body. Sea monster? Ruan, Fa Shiban, and the others were all surprised. At this moment, the Huang Kuai also revealed half of its body. It was a sea monster with thousands of heads. Don't panic. They are the tidal messengers, Goddess said calmly. Tidal messenger? These are the tidal messengers? Obviously, the tidal messengers were completely different from what Xian Li and the others had imagined. Each head of the tidal messengers had their own thoughts. After they appeared, they didn't attack the cruise ship. Instead, they led the way. Their huge bodies floated into the whirlpool. The cruise ship was also pulled by the whirlpool and began to spin around it. The cruise ship and the tidal messengers continued to go deeper into the whirlpool. At the center of the whirlpool was a huge black hole. They were going deeper and deeper into the black hole. The light was getting dimmer and dimmer. The black hole at the center of the whirlpool gave everyone on the cruise a huge pressure. It wasn't a pleasant feeling. However, at the moment when everyone's pressure reached its limit, their vision suddenly brightened. The darkness was dispelled, replaced by the bright sunlight and the radiance of spring. The cruise ship appeared in the middle of a rippling blue lake. As Goddess's song stopped, the tidal messengers slowly sank into the lake. Welcome to the Holy Realm. Goddess stood at the bow of the ship, opened her arms and shouted. Xin Li, Moer, Lisa, and Ruan Fa Shiban were all looking at the scenery in front of them. On the shore was a vast grassland, with many colorful flowers and grasses. In the distance were clouds, and further away was the shadow of a huge mountain covered by clouds. Our destination is there, the holy mountain Olympus, Goddess said. So far, how long do we have to walk? It's okay, around 100 kilometers, Goddess said. Are there any other means of transportation? It's not that there aren't any other means of transportation. The cruise ship does have a few vehicles that can be used on both land and water, but I think it's safer for us to walk on our own. As expected, it would be the most unreasonable thing if there were no hidden dangers in such a beautiful scene, Luang Fa Shiban said. Underneath that grassland, there are many ancient mimicking insects. They're the evolved version of the demon worm. They're all hidden underground? Ruan Fa Shiban asked. Are the attacks coming from underground? That's too troublesome. That's not the most dangerous part, Goddess said. The real danger is further ahead. The cruise ship couldn't get close to the shore, so they could only go ashore on a small raft. Xin Li suddenly kicked something and scared herself. She looked down and saw a helmet. She looked down and saw a helmet on the ground. However, after taking a few steps, Xin Li saw a pile of white bones lying on the ground. Miss Goddess, you said this is Mount Olympus? Of course. But where are the gods here? Since this is where the Olympians live, there should be many gods here, but there's nothing here, not even the shadow of a god. Is this really Mount Olympus? 1,000 years ago, this place had already been abandoned, Wang Chong said. Abandoned 1,000 years ago? That's right. I don't know the reason, but the gods have long left this sacred land. If you want to see a real god, I'm afraid you won't get it here. There were nearly 2,000 spiritualists on the cruise ship. They had to wait for a long time to get ashore. Mr. Shiban, please step back. You don't need to intervene in the early stages of the battle. In fact, you don't need to help throughout the whole process. Chapter 2086. Ruan Faxben and the others were obviously happy to watch. They were all admiring the surrounding scenery. Apart from the hidden dangers, this place was truly beautiful. This was a land that had not been polluted by the footprints of humans and was blessed by the gods. Soon, they saw the demon earthworms crawling out of the ground. Their appearance was clearly very uncomfortable. But they didn't cause too much trouble for the team. There were many people in the team. There were more than 1,500 spiritualists. There was also an armed army of about 800. The weapons they were equipped with were all the most advanced and lethal weapons. And they were all controlled by Goddess. I didn't expect to come to Mount Olympus so easily, Ruan Faxben exclaimed. Faxben, is this really Mount Olympus? Xianli and Kalan were both confused. From the oxygen content in the air, it's 16% higher than most places on Earth. It's a different environment from Earth, Risa said. The other elements in the air are also different, Risa said. The elements in the air are 10 times higher than the average on Earth. This is definitely not a normal plane. Of course, I don't know if this is the legendary Mount Olympus. Xianli looked at Goddess. She doesn't look like it's her first time here. Xianli, you've really improved if you can see this, but it's still not enough. Xianli also knew that she wasn't good enough. She had basically learned a lot from Ruan Faxben and Risa along the way. Ruan Faxben had rich travel and social experience. Risa was extremely intelligent. She could analyze all kinds of situations. Of course, Ruan Faxben and Risa had taught her many things of their own accord. After all, this was the real reason why Qinzhao had them bring her out. Rumble, at this moment, a torrent of water appeared on the horizon. The flood stirred up a huge cloud of dust. It wasn't a flash flood. It was a herd of bulls. No, more accurately, it was an army of bulls. At the front was a golden minotaur that was more than 10 meters tall. Behind it were countless minotaurs. The minotaurs varied in size. The big ones were 4 or 5 meters tall, while the small ones were only 2 or 3 meters tall. Their weapons included broadswords, swords, axes, or hammers. Some of the minotaurs had scales on their bodies. Level 1 alert, prepare for battle. The leader of the army shouted. The army reacted quickly. They quickly got into formation and readied their weapons. Free fire. Boom boom boom, da-da-da-da-da, gunshots and explosions rang out one after another. Amidst the rumbling, waves were set off in the herd. These weapons were a threat to the minotaurs. However, the effect was minimal against the gold minotaur, who was the leader. The gold minotaur had no reaction to the explosion of the cannonball on its body. As for bullets, they were even more meaningless. At this moment, the Magic Legion under Goddess took action. One of the spiritualists also grew to a height of more than 10 meters. This kind of gigantification was actually not rare among the strengthening spiritualists. However, it was still a little strange for it to grow to a size of more than 10 meters. The spiritualist who had transformed into a giant rushed towards the golden minotaur. The two sides collided in an instant. However, the giant was defeated in an instant, and was instantly sent flying. The gold minotaur was much stronger than the gigantified spiritualist. The gold minotaur charged forward with large steps. Its horn pierced through the giant's stomach. Ah! The giant screamed. Just then, a few spiritualists also joined the battle. However, their magic was less of a threat to the gold minotaur than the army's cannonballs. The gold minotaur's body was made of magic gold. Metal had very high magic resistance, and magic gold was strengthened on this basis. Thus, the gold minotaur was almost completely immune to low-level magic. This was very similar to Qinzhao. Should we help? Xianli asked. No. They have so many people. They have enough power to fight against the Minotaur army. The gold Minotaur was indeed strong, but it was not strong enough to ignore all power. The Minotaur army behind it was even more so. Guns were enough to pose a fatal threat to them. They could not even pass through the warning line and were killed en masse. This was a battlefield and also a meat grinder. That's weird. There are so many minotaurs. They can spread out and create a formation. That way, the soldiers' weapons will be much weaker. Once the Minotaur army charges into Goddard's army, the situation will be reversed. And that gold Minotaur? Is it the commander? It doesn't seem to be commanding at all. It just charged forward by itself. If this is a battle between humans, this kind of mistake can't happen. That gold Minotaur isn't alive. It's just a puppet, Ruan Faxben said. Ruan Faxben said, I really want to take this big guy back and study its structure. We can't help it. The president isn't here. We can't even move it. The cannons continued firing for half an hour. The battlefield was covered in blood and flesh. Not a single Minotaur charged through. They only knew how to advance blindly. They did not know how to retreat. They did not know how to use any roundabout tactics. The first to be destroyed was the gold Minotaur. Under the combined attacks of several dozen spirit controllers, it was also disassembled into parts. Among the spiritualists under Goddard's command, more than 10 of them were lost when they fought against the golden Minotaur. They had also used up a lot of ammunition. It was a good thing that Goddard's army was equipped with many logistics teams for this expedition. They were responsible for transporting weapons, ammunition, and other living supplies. It could be said that Goddard's was very well prepared for this operation. Ruan Faxben and the others had been watching the show from beginning to end. Mr. Ruan Faxben, what do you think of my army? Very strong, Ruan Faxben said. What else? You don't have any more thoughts? Strong is enough to describe it. Miss Goddard's, what else do you need? Hee hee. Mr. Ruan Faxben, join us and become my subordinate. There are only benefits for you and no disadvantages. You can obtain anything you want, and all you need to pay is loyalty. 9 Heavens God Emperor. Goddard's thought that she had made sufficient preparations. But that was not the case. She had learned from the last time she came in, but the attack this time was more intense than before. It seemed like all the monsters here were agitated. However, Xian Li, Ruan Faxben, Reisa, Moore and Kalan were very relaxed. Because they didn't need to do anything at all. They just needed to follow the team. A battle had just ended. Mr. Ruan Faxben, we need to talk. Goddard's walked in front of everyone. What's the matter? Miss Goddard's. You've seen my team's hard work these days, but you have done nothing. You're not a good partner. Ha! Miss Goddard's, did you forget what you said when we first came in? You told us not to do anything, and we listened to your request. You said that you don't need my power and can do it yourself. But in the battles these days, didn't you realize that you can't find the Holy Garden with your own power? No, it's the opposite. You've attracted so many monsters because you've brought so many people in. If it were just the few of us, this wouldn't have happened. Therefore, the battle could have been avoided. You guys were the ones who started the battle. Of course, it's reasonable for you to fight, so you don't have to say that we didn't do anything, Ruan Faxi said calmly. However, his unyielding attitude made Goddard's very uncomfortable. But you can't deny that my army made this journey easier. So what? So, it's time for you to make your contribution. Do you need us to do anything? If you fight, of course, we can help. No, your battle prowess is meaningless, Goddess said calmly. However, you do have something that we need. We have. What is it? A scepter called the ruler's scepter. Goddess felt that it was about time. They had gone deep enough, and there was no chance for them to retreat. Moreover, they had absolute power, which meant that they had the absolute initiative. So, as long as they had the item, even if there was a conflict, they wouldn't be able to fight back. They wouldn't be able to fight back. We don't have the ruler's scepter. We've never even heard of it. Ruan Faxben obviously denied that he had the item. Mr. Ruan Faxben, I hope we can solve this problem peacefully. After all, we're partners. I don't want to resort to force. No, no, no. You're threatening us with force, Ruan Faxben said matter-of-factly. Ruan Faxben said matter-of-factly, so, now we can understand that our partnership is over, right? If you really want to think that way, it's not impossible. Goddess didn't want to keep hiding. It's a pity that we're fighting among ourselves before we find what we want. Humans, Ruan Faxben sighed. No, you weren't sincere from the start. Goddess had decided to fall out with them, but she still stubbornly believed that it was Ruan Faxben's fault. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2088. Hand over the ruler's scepter, Goddess said. Only the king has the right to use it. What if we refuse? Don't force me to use violence. Otherwise, you'll look bad. Goddess looked at Ruan Faxben coldly. Are you too confident? Or not confident enough? Ruan Faxben looked at Goddess. Or do you think the magic potion you've given us has taken effect? You know? Ha! I'm an alchemist. Do you think I don't know you've drugged us? Ruan Faxben said in a mocking tone. That's why I don't understand. If you think you're strong enough, why did you drug us? I thought it could avoid some violence. To be honest, I really don't want to kill you, but things are still developing in the direction we don't want. Don't overestimate yourself. Ruan Faxben's lips curled. At this moment, Xianli, Emoer, Risa, and Kalan, who were behind Ruan Faxi, were all ready for battle. Mr. Ruan Faxben, do you really think these kids can beat me? Boom! Suddenly, Goddess felt a terrifying impact coming at her from the front. Goddess was sent flying more than 10 meters away and fell heavily on the ground. If she didn't have a magic protection tool on her, that attack would have taken her life. Fortunately, she had taken many precautions. Fortunately, she had always been cautious. Ruan Faxben looked at Risa. Next time, can you tell me in advance? I still have a lot to say. Sorry, I've always wanted to kill this woman. Risa would never admit that she was jealous of the woman's body. Goddess stood up again, but her face was filled with anger and distortion. You asked for it. Goddess pointed at Ruan Faxben and the others. Kill them. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, there was a huge explosion in the armed army's camp without warning. Many armed personnel were affected, and at the same time, the logistics team was also affected. Clearly, the ammunition of the armed army had exploded. Goddess's expression changed drastically. When did you do this? Our boss always teaches us that we shouldn't have the heart to harm others, but we shouldn't have the heart to defend ourselves. Lisa looked at Goddess with a sweet smile. In fact, they didn't do anything. Lisa could control the temperature difference within a range of 50 meters, and the camp of the armed forces and logistics forces happened to be not far from them. Although Lisa could not directly control the extreme temperature difference in the entire area, she could still control the high temperature in a small area. She only needed to raise the temperature within the range of the gunpowder to the ignition point. Even the ignition point of these gunpowder only needed a temperature of 40 to 50 degrees to ignite and detonate. This seemingly harmless girl was actually an extremely violent person. Very well, but do you really think that you can defeat my magic legion? Goddess gritted her teeth in anger, and her face was filled with anger. We don't need to defeat your magic legion directly. It's enough as long as we can kill you. Ruan Faxaben had a faint smile on his face. Can you do it? Goddess sneered at Ruan Faxaben. I'll give it a try. As soon as Ruan Faxaben finished speaking, a black shadow suddenly appeared behind him and attacked him from behind. Be careful. Ding! Kaolan instantly blocked the shadow's sneak attack. Ruan Faxaben had a faint smile on his face, but he was already cursing in his heart. He was really frightened. He had almost been too arrogant. Fortunately, Kaolan reacted in time. And this black shadow was a typical shadow assassin. Since his attack did not succeed, he immediately retreated. Boiling blood. Xian Li did not waste any time and directly cast a blood curse. The shadow assassin immediately fell to the ground and rolled around, wailing in pain. His body began to emit heat, and his blood was really boiling. Ruan Faxaben still stood where he was, but the hand he hid behind him opened a bottle. Green smoke came out of the bottle. The green smoke began to spread in all directions. Oh no! It's magic poison gas. Hold your breath, quick! A spiritualist discovered the poison gas that Ruan Faxaben had released. Ruan Faxaben was an alchemist, and his magic fighting ability was very weak. But this did not mean that he really could not fight back. As an alchemist, he obviously had his own way of fighting. Faxaben, since you've been discovered, use it openly. There's no need to hide it, Lisa said, unconcerned. She had always looked down on Ruan Faxaben's unorthodox methods. Of course, she had to admit that Ruan Faxaben's unorthodox methods were very useful in this situation. No matter how arrogant she was, she knew that they could not fight so many spiritualists under normal circumstances. After all, they were just above average. They had not reached the level of the monsters in the supernatural organization. If Gaia, Norma, or Helis were here, they could probably do it. Or Dongye Tianxi, who was holding the demon knife and had a pale face. Of course, there was also the real monster, Chen Zhao. Lisa, help me. Ruan Faxaben casually tossed a few bottles. Lisa immediately used her ability to heat up the bottles in the air and then explode. The bottles immediately emitted a large amount of colored gas and dust. The nearby spiritualists immediately collapsed to the ground. They were all too familiar with this kind of chaotic battle. They had practiced in the Tower of Trials for many years, and they had also cooperated with each other. All of this was displayed at this moment. Cough, cough. Goddess felt a burning pain in her throat. Suddenly, Goddess felt a chill on her neck. Kaolan had already placed a dagger on her neck. Miss Goddess, you better order them to retreat now, Kaolan threatened. Otherwise, something bad might happen. Before this journey, Kaolan might still be a newbie. But now, he had evolved into an expert. At least, he was no longer as resistant and panicky about killing as he was the first time. Godarus trembled in anger. They clearly had the absolute advantage, but she, the commander, had lost to a bunch of kids. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2089. She thought that her defense was perfect enough. However, these people had destroyed her self-defense so easily. And most of them were still children. Her defense had been broken by a group of children. However, Kallan had scratched the skin on Godarus's neck. Godarus was even more furious. She hadn't been hurt for hundreds of years. To put it bluntly, the money she spent on skin care was worth more than Kallan. But today, she had been hurt by a child. However, Godarus was also frightened. Except for Ruan Faxben, they were all children. They didn't know the severity of the situation. "Let me go, and pretend that this never happened," Godarus growled. She already regretted her previous cautious actions. She had thought that Ruan Faxben was a talent, and that she might be able to win him over to work for her. So she had never shown any hostility, and even deliberately tried to get close to Ruan Faxben. But the result was the opposite of what she wanted. She had even been humiliated like this. "Of course it's okay to let you go, but shouldn't you let your men retreat first?" Ruan Faxben said indifferently. "But how do I know if you will keep your promise?" "Well, it seems that we can't come to an agreement." Ruan Faxben said disapprovingly, "Kallan, kill Miss Godarus, and then we'll break out ourselves." Godarus panicked. "Don't do anything rash, retreat. Retreat, all of you retreat." Under Godarus's order, the Magic Legion and the Armed Legion retreated obediently. "Fa Shiban, should we kill this woman now? Otherwise, when she returns, she will definitely hunt us down." Seeing that Godarus's men had all retreated to a distance, Risa suddenly had an evil thought in her mind. Risa had no sense of morality, and she was extremely jealous of Godarus, in every aspect. Godarus's hair stood on end. What was wrong with the youngest girl? Why did she feel a strong sense of malice from her? Did she offend her? Or did she have a grudge against her? Forget it. If we kill her, then her men will definitely chase after us crazily. Do you think that if we let her go, she won't send her subordinates to kill us? She knows what's important. Ruan Faxburn glanced at Godarus. Am I right? Humph. Godarus snorted and turned her head away, ignoring Ruan Faxben. But what Ruan Fa she said was indeed what she was thinking. Chasing after them meant that he would have to spend more time. It also meant that her plan was more likely to fail. Therefore, the best way was to complete his own plan first. As for when to chase after them, as long as his plan succeeded, he could do it any time. Okay, let her go. Ruan Faxi made the final decision. Lisa may be the most intelligent of them all. But Lisa couldn't keep her sanity all the time. Ruan Faxi knew better than to seize the moment. Therefore, he was the nominal leader and decision-maker of this team. In the end, Godarus was released. Everyone saw the look of hatred in Godarus's eyes as she left. They knew that the next conflict might not end there. Let's go, Ruan Faxi said. In case that woman brings people to kill us. Didn't you say that she won't chase after us? Nonsense. If we just wait here, it won't be a chase. If it were you, if a mouse that bit you ran in front of you, would you raise your foot and stomp it to death? They hurriedly packed up and set off. They were heading in the same direction as Goddess and her team. They were all heading toward Mount Olympus. Therefore, it was impossible to say that there was no conflict between them. Sooner or later, they would meet each other. When that time came, it would be a life-and-death battle. Farsben, can you guess what that woman's goal is? I can't guess. Ruan shook his head. Doesn't she want the golden apple? Or rather, she wants the golden apple tree, Xianli asked curiously. In her opinion, this should be the most direct. Both the golden apple and the golden apple tree were legendary items. It should be reasonable for Goddess to want the golden apple and the golden apple tree. Why did they think that what Goddess was after was neither of these? Ruan Faxi's team wasn't far from Goddess's team. In fact, they were right behind Goddess's team. After all, Goddess's team had so many people. Moreover, they were heading in the same direction. Therefore, it was almost impossible to completely avoid them. If they walked in front, it might turn into a chase. Therefore, hanging at the back was the best position. It wasn't that Goddess's team didn't have powerful spiritualists. Therefore, no matter how proud Ruan Faxi's team was, they didn't dare to say that they could fight against a team of more than 2,000 people. Previously, they were able to succeed, not only because they were strong. It was also because Goddess hadn't treated them seriously from beginning to end. If Goddess had treated them seriously, their best outcome would have been to retreat in one piece instead of holding Goddess hostage and leaving easily. Mr. Faxi, I don't understand. Since Goddess doesn't want the golden apple, why can't she really cooperate with us? We've been wary of her from the beginning. If we had been more sincere in the beginning, could we have worked together more closely? There is a type of person who isn't suitable to be an ally. For example, a woman like Goddess. Her desire for control is too strong. Either we submit to her, or we can only be enemies. Is Uncle the same kind of person? Your uncle is much better than her. Although he has a strong desire for control, he's not ambitious, so you don't have to worry about being schemed against by him. At least he won't betray his allies. Uncle is so powerful, yet he can treat his allies sincerely. Why does this woman have such an attitude? It's not a question of who. Ruan Faxi smiled and shook his head. It's a difference in how everyone treats the people around them and how they do things. From Goddess's point of view, we are the ones who are wrong. In fact, this matter isn't about who is right or wrong. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2090. When they stood at the foot of Mount Olympus, they realized how magnificent the mountain was. It wasn't a mountain range, but a mountain peak. The clouds were halfway up the mountain, and they could only vaguely see its shadow. Look at that side. Xianli suddenly pointed to the side of Mount Olympus. From where they stood, they could see both sides of the mountain. Everyone gasped, because the side of Mount Olympus was completely flat, without any rugged or protrusions. It looked like a piece that had been cut off. This doesn't seem to be the real Mount Olympus, Lisa said. It's more like a part of Mount Olympus, or a corner. It's just a part, and it's already so big. How big would the whole thing be? Everyone looked at Mount Olympus in amazement. Standing in front of the mountain, everyone felt how small they were. Suddenly, a cry came from the sky. The cry was very long, and it sounded like someone was approaching them. When they looked up, they saw a person. To be precise, it was a person who had been thrown off the mountain. No one could save him. All Ruanfax Ben and the others could do was avoid him. They didn't want to be hit by this person. After the free fall, this person had an intimate contact with the solid ground. Then, there was only a mess of flesh and blood. Judging from the torn cloth, it should be one of Godorus's people. There seems to be a battle up there. Everyone looked at each other. What about us? Should we go up and take a look? It feels dangerous. Dangerous, but it must be interesting. Godorus had learned her lesson from last time. Now, as long as there was a battle, she would be at the back. And there would be a large number of people around to protect her. Many eagle men appeared in front of them. They had the bodies of humans, but the wings and claws of eagles. They weren't very powerful. They might be able to deal with ordinary people easily, but they weren't strong enough to deal with these heavily armed people and spiritualists. The most troublesome thing was that they lived on the cliffs. When prey entered their range, they would use rocks to throw them down from a high altitude. Or they could just skip the prey at high speed and push them down the mountain. Moreover, their intelligence was not low. They knew that the weapons in the hands of these invaders could pose a threat to them. Therefore, they were at a height that these weapons could not reach. Damn it! These eagle men weren't this hard to deal with last time, Godorus said angrily. Master, these eagle men aren't much smarter than humans except that they haven't developed their own civilization. Our civilization caused them a lot of casualties last time, so it's only normal that they've learned their lesson. Is there any way to get rid of them? Godorus asked. Let's find cover so that they won't be able to do anything, a spiritualist beside Godorus said. The eagle men's two moves to deal with them were throwing stones from the sky and pushing people over. The eagle men, on the other hand, wouldn't be able to throw things high up in the air if they were under cover. Secondly, he couldn't use a sneak attack to push someone away. This was a mountain road, so there were many protruding rocks along the way. It is not difficult to find a lot of cover. However, the eagle men weren't stupid either. After Godorus's team found cover, they stopped attacking. They were not in a hurry. All they had to do was wait. When Godorus's team couldn't wait any longer, they would naturally come out of the cover. After all, they couldn't hide under the cover forever. Godorus, who was hiding under the cover, was in a bad mood. Although they had temporarily averted the crisis. But they were also in trouble now. These eagle men were too vengeful. Even after so many years, they still clearly remembered Godorus's team. What do we do now? We can't buy time with these beasts at all. This was the eagle men's home ground, and although Godorus's team was well prepared. But after all, they couldn't really fight a protracted battle with the eagle men. They couldn't compete with the eagle men in endurance on their home ground. Master, although we are at a disadvantage now, we are not really powerless to fight back. Then what do you think we should do now? Godorus was not good at commanding, so she never intervened in a battle. But this didn't mean that she had a good temper. She was a very controlling person. She didn't like this kind of passive situation. They are smart, but only among animals, Godorus's subordinate said. We still have a lot of high explosives. What do we do exactly? There are a few people in our team who have mastered invisibility magic. Let them carry the explosives and go directly into the eagle men's nest to detonate them. Godorus's eyes lit up. She had to say that this plan was very vicious, but very effective. Looks like they're in trouble, Lisa said gloatingly. They were also hiding under the cover now. Those eagle men couldn't tell friend from foe, or rather, Ruan Faxben and the others were also enemies. Even the few of them would have a hard time dealing with these eagle men. So they also needed to hide under the cover now. However, they were small in number, and their individual strength was relatively strong. So they were still relatively free to move. Unless those eagle men attacked them in full force regardless of everything. Otherwise, there was really nothing they could do. Therefore, they could easily gloat over the misfortune of others. Hey, two people came out. I remember those two, they both know invisibility magic. Oh. I see, they want to send these two to blow up the eagle men's nest. A smirk appeared on Lisa's face. It's okay to do bad things, but you'd better be careful, said Ruan Faxben. I can't do bad things even if I want to. This place is too close to them. If they find us, we'll be in big trouble. Lisa was standing under the cover, hundreds of meters away from Goddard's team. Fortunately, there were bunkers and plants to cover them, so their hiding spot was relatively well hidden. Although Lisa had a bad personality, it didn't mean she was reckless. In fact, every move she made was done after careful consideration. No, I mean, if it's possible, we should give them a big gift. Why? Lisa looked at Ruan Faxben. This is our only chance to weaken them. I don't want to hide the next time I see that woman. Chapter 2091. The two invisible spiritualists followed the winding mountain road and slowly found their way to the nest of the eagle men. The nest of the eagle men was huge. When they stood in front of the nest, it was as if they were looking at a huge stadium. There were many holes in the cave, and those holes were the eagle men. Each hole was an eagle man. They had no sense of family and would be abandoned by their parents after they were born. They needed to grow wings in a few days and then go hunting with the main group. Otherwise, they would starve to death. If it weren't for the fertility of the eagle men, their breeding method might have caused them to go extinct. Fortunately, the eagle men didn't eat their own kind, and they didn't eat the children of their own kind. We need to find a place to plant the explosives, one of the spiritualists said in a low voice. The two of them were in front of the shadow men's nest. However, the nest was too big. They also didn't know where to place the explosives in order to maximize their power. Lisa had two branches on her head, as if such a disguise would work. In fact, the eagle men's vision was thousands of times better than that of humans. Such a disguise was meaningless to the eagle men. However, Lisa's body emitted a smell that could make the eagle men think that she was one of their kind. That was because Lisa had used a potion given by Ruan Faxben. Lisa, that's stupid, Moore said with the communicator. At the same time, they were also observing Lisa's movements with binoculars. Lisa's movements were the most convenient because she was the only one in the team who could use long-range attacks. Also, Lisa's long-range attacks could control the temperature difference in a small range even from hundreds of meters away. Moreover, she could sense invisible spiritualists. Like cold-blooded animals, Lisa had heat and heat senses. Spiritualists could only turn invisible, but they couldn't hide their body temperature. That's the ultimate disguise technique, Lisa retorted. Don't copy the president's unfunny jokes on the battlefield. Faxben, Xin Li is right next to you. If she tells the president that you said his jokes are unfunny, I think you'll be in big trouble. I take it back. Ruan Faxi decisively admitted defeat and immediately changed the topic. When those two people enter the eagleman's nest, detonate the explosives immediately. This will ensure that not too many eaglemen are killed, and at the same time, let the eaglemen know the danger. At that time, they will definitely come out of their nest and take revenge on Goddess and her team. I know what to do. You don't have to teach me every detail. Risa, who had a weak sense of morality, knew best what to do to bring the greatest results. The two invisible spiritualists thought that they were hidden. In fact, every move they made was under Lisa's eyes. The moment they entered the Shadow Men's lair, the explosives they were carrying exploded without warning. In an instant, huge flames spread out along with the shockwave. It's a success. Holding the telescope in her hand, she saw flames rushing out of the Shadow Men's nest halfway up the mountain. It's a pity for those two spiritualists. Their sacrifice was worth it. Goddess did not feel it was a pity. She even felt that it was worth it. It was really worth it to pay two mediocre spiritualists to solve the big problem in front of them. The flames gradually subsided. Just then, countless eagle men rushed out of the Shadow Men's lair. Those eagle men, full of anger, rushed toward the bunker where Goddess and her team were hiding. The sky was dark, and there were far more of them than the first time they were attacked. Oh no! Goddess's expression changed dramatically. Those eagle men began to rush under the bunker, regardless of casualties. This was when Goddess's armed army came into play. Their machine guns caused a lot of casualties to the eagle men. But there were too many of these eagle men. And the armed army did not form a perfect front. This caused the power of their firearms to not be used to the fullest. If it was the kind of battle between two armies, where the soldiers all relied on each other and formed a defensive front, then guns would play the greatest role. But like this, you hide in one place, I hide in another, unable to effectively protect each other. In this case, if the eagle men attacked from all angles, it would be difficult for the soldiers to resist. And the situation was also developing in this direction. These eagle men were already charging forward regardless of casualties. And the Magic Legion also couldn't exert their combat advantage in the melee. The chaotic scene made it difficult for them to cast a few spells in peace. Except for a few powerful spiritualists, most of the other spiritualists were covering their heads and scurrying away. The team suffered a lot of casualties. Goddess was a little dazed. What do we do? What do we do now, Master? Let's go, we can't stay here. The subordinate who had been accompanying Goddess immediately pulled Goddess back. Behind them, some spiritualists who had fought their way out of the encirclement followed one after another. Everyone was fleeing frantically. The scene was too chaotic. No one could stop this chaos. Goddess saw the eagle men chasing behind her. The spiritualist beside her immediately stopped and released an ice arrow, which scattered into countless smaller ice arrows in midair, instantly killing a dozen eagle men. But there were still more eagle men chasing after them. And the ice spiritualist who was in charge of the rear also died tragically under the hands of the eagle men amid a scream. Goddess was scared out of her wits. Those eagle men had already pounced on her again. Just when Goddess thought she was dead for sure, suddenly, those eagle men stopped and hovered in midair, but they didn't dare to move forward at all. Goddess and those spiritualists who had survived all let out a long sigh of relief. Only then did Goddess realize that they seemed to have entered a building complex. This building complex was full of the aesthetic style of ancient Greece, and the color was also mainly white. The building complex was full of grandeur and magnificence, and at the same time, it exuded a fascinating aura. And in the center of the building complex, there was a towering tree. That towering tree stood in the center just like that. Goddess's entire body and mind trembled. It was actually here. Had she really found it? The Holy Garden. This was the Holy Garden. She didn't expect to really find it. Was that the golden apple tree? This was also the first time Goddess had found the Holy Garden and seen the golden apple tree. Even for Goddess, it was a legend. Goddess couldn't wait to run in through the gate. As for the battle behind her, she was no longer in the mood to pay attention. The thing that he had been dreaming of was in there. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.